The woman says that since Tao-san is already here, he might as well answer. Tao-san says it's the Gokuraku District Problem-Solving Office. The guy calls out to someone, attracting their attention. The man says what a strange world they live in, and that something weird is going on in this city. He says that the number of mysterious deaths seems to have increased recently and wonders if people really are disappearing every day. The man explains that ultimately, no one cares, as long as they don't. The man says that nothing has changed in this city. Everything looks the same. The man says, Tao-san tells the old man he talks too much. Tao-san says he's passing on photographs and negatives, to which the old man thanks him. The man asks if the old man could just stop going to underground brothels, and the old man explains that he doesn't know about that and that men have been active throughout. The woman says he's sick. He sits silently next to her. Tao-san says he wants to appear in the weekly newspaper. The woman says it's only to their advantage. She explains, okay, he owes you 500,000, and the man abruptly puts his hand on the table. He says he's being extremely straightforward today. The man says he's always been kind to Tao-san and won't cause him any more problems. The man asks if he's really in a position to say that. He replies that this time they're just being straightforward and expresses bewilderment. The man thanks her and says that if he needs anything else, let him know. The man tells her to wait, then notices a smell. Tao-san says she knows the man is lying. He says he doesn't believe him and demands an explanation, accusing him of acting like a child. The man screams and begs for forgiveness, promising to pay. The man says it's too expensive and calls it outright robbery, but the guy denies it. The woman asks what the man is talking about and says there are no laws in this city. The man says that if word gets out, the price will be much higher than 500,000 and asks him not to repeat himself when he addresses Jung-san and also informs him that they are the only ones he can rely on right now. Jung-san explains that he won't accept a cent less and demands that they pay everything. Tao-san says the other one already had everything with him. The man shouts that he's a fool, a fool. The man shouts, ah. He and the woman are eating. He says that the woman really eats a lot, and the girl says, hoo. The girl says Dao-san reads more than he eats, and confirms this. The girl reports that several clients have mentioned that many dead cats and other animals have been found in the alleys lately, and asks if there was anything strange about the way they died. The girl recalls. The woman reports that all the remains had huge teeth marks on them, and that they were all drained of blood, and that people had disappeared nearby. He says that isn't this a job for a problem-solving agency? The woman says that if they have any trouble, they'll come to them, but so far she hasn't received any requests. The girl explains that there's been a mahjong parlor there since she started working there, and that's because they're hard to find, so she's demanding they change the sign. Tao-san says that he'll change it then. He says he's concerned about something else right now and needs to sort out the disappearances, and then says he'll take the money from the girl. The girl screams that this is wrong and explains that someone like her could be kidnapped. Tao-san announces that he bought cardboard and paint, as well as cigarettes and snacks, and says he knows what he's doing. He then hums to himself. Later, Tao-san notices something and says, He says that if you stick something on a building without permission, then this. The man, shocked, says, oh my god, and makes a noise of surprise. The poster announces that there is a 5 million yen reward for finding Harun Yushka. Tao-san says he smells gas and asks what it is. The woman says 5 million yen is a good job and offers Dao-san as much of his favorite food as he wants. Dao-san is delighted. The man under the stairs holds boxes and looks at the girl painting graffiti on the wall. The girl says, what? What? He asks what she wants. He says it looks cool. Then he yells that she's a stupid kid and hits the girl. Tao-san tells him not to look down on him and explains that if it's a question of money, he has 5 million. Tao-san asks if the man did the same, to which the man replies yes. The man and Tao-san shake hands. The woman says to leave money for the repairs and explains that 300,000 will be enough. The woman asks to take off her clothes, as they're not bad. Tao-san explains that he has neither money nor clothes to give away. The guy with the card remains silent. The girl on the couch expresses fear. The guy claims to be the son of the famous Kiyomine Zaibatsu and says he'll tell his parents he's being blackmailed. He asks whose son it is and remarks that he's quite the bon vivant. The man explains he'll take him to the bounty hunter. The guy squeezes. The guy says he uses every penny to help his friend, so no, and explains that he is giving away his entire fortune. Tao-san says it reminded him of a friend. The woman says, ah, and clarifies that this is what she's talking about. He reports that the number of missing people continues to grow and explains that it's because he was hanged without permission. He demands to know about it. The man calls the other weakling, but he corrects him by saying that his name is Luca Kiyomine. Luca asks why so suddenly and says, Tao San says there have been rumors recently about corpse stories. The man explains that they're about stories in which people disappear, and the girl confirms this. He says there's no point in talking about it, and explains that bad things are bound to happen to good people like Yuki-chan. He explains that all the boys at school call him names, and they probably don't like him very much. The boy explains that he was born into this family against his will. The man asks if he's still drawing this nonsense and orders him to stop, adding that he's thrown out all the useless garbage related to his manga. The boy leaves, and the man remains standing. Then the drawing is shown. Tao San says he's top-notch. Tao San says the guy's weird and asks what's wrong. The guy explains, it's nothing. Tao San says, it's amazing. The guy says, and then asks to wait and wants to talk to Tao San again, who says that it was a rule his father told him to follow, and quotes, don't talk to beastmen, they are the lower class, then smiles and says but, and then adds and then. Tao San says he was his first friend. The boy says that if the money brings Yuki-chan back, he'll give it all and do everything in his power. The man explains that the drawing that brought them together can bring Yuki-chan back. Tao-san says that he is his best friend and that he will save him, even if he has to do it alone. The man and woman listen silently. He says he'll help, and the guy in the cap is surprised. He says his name is Alma, and the woman with the pipe explains that she's him, and they'll be happy to help save Yuki-chan. The guy asks why Dao-san is doing this. Dao-san explains that he solves problems, that's why he does it, and says that they are the Gokuraku district's troubleshooting agency, and if the guy has any trouble, he and Dao-san will help him deal with it. The guy says that's very suspicious. He says he doesn't have time for them and that they've discussed everything, so he won't pay for the repairs. The man explains that it's just a sign. He says it's broken, and the man accuses Dao-san of breaking it himself. Dao-san calls the guy an insolent brat. The guy replies that Dao-san is the same. Dao-san says, The guy says the sun is setting, to which Dao-san agrees. The guy says he's lucky they didn't chase him. The man explains he's never heard of a problem-solving company and finds it all suspicious and scary. He says he solves problems and asks how the guy plans to resolve the issue, then demands to know what's wrong with them. The man says that they listened to him and that they were the only ones who did it, and the guy says that but. The guy says he doesn't have time to think about it. He has to put up all the posters before it gets dark. He explains that he still needs to inspect a third of the alley where he made the drawings. The guy says the sun will set soon, and if he doesn't find her soon, it won't be here. The image contains no text or speech from the characters, only a dog lying on the floor is shown. A man is carrying a cat in his arms. The man says the cat was hit by a car. The man explains that the cat needs to be taken to the hospital immediately. Tao-san reports that he's found Yuki-chan. Yuki-chan speaks, asking if he's hurt and if he's okay. Tao-san remains silent. Yuki-chan tries to call Tao-san's name. He says he was looking for Luca and knew she would recognize his drawings. Luca tells her not to approach. Dao-san reports that this is not just a monster, but something that should not exist in this world, and explains that its appearance is due to a violation of the boundaries between dimensions. The guy asks what it is. The man asks Yuki-chan to go home with him and tells him to run. Tao-san shows a boy's drawing. The man falls into the monster's mouth. The man watches in horror. The boy screams, raising his bag to strike. The monster's jaw opens wide, releasing objects from its mouth. The boy runs toward the monster's enormous mouth. The boy cries and screams, money flying around. Tao-san screams at Alma and says she doesn't have a small intestine. Alma screams, "Ah!" The creature makes sounds and asks for forgiveness for what happened earlier, and also asks, please. He says he'll leave it to him, and the guy asks to save Yuki-chan. Tao-san reports that they most often catch people walking near animal carcasses. The man says Tao-san has been feeding on them. Tao-san explains that it's a damn worm. He shoots at the monster, which attacks two people, one of whom falls. The man says he's about to do something, to which the monster replies that it understands. The guy shouts out to Yuki-chan. Dao-san says he got it and picks up the guy who is falling down, after which Dao-san says, phew. He tells Luca to hold him. Luca agrees. He says it's time to clean up. The woman with the gun confirms this. The guy with fangs coughs. The man says, okay. Tao-san says it's all right, Luca, and it won't take 3 minutes. The man makes a hoarse sound. He runs towards the huge monster and kicks it. Dao-san delivers a powerful kick to the huge monster with an open mouth, breaking its jaw, then clenches his fist and continues the attack, delivering another powerful blow. He tells her it's a disaster. He explains that it's a monster created from human bodies and animal carcasses, feeding on human blood and flesh, and that they are the worst of all evils. He explains that hell exists, and if there are demons there, then there are disasters too. The guy asks, The woman explains that on the surface they are problem solvers, but behind the scenes their job is to kill disasters, and explains that they are hired killers hunting down evil. The guy says that's what hired killers do and asks if they're scared. The woman replies with one. Tao San reports that he was the first to kill this emotion. The man screams at Tao San. Tao San delivers a powerful blow. The guy, shocked, asks what it is. He says it's a solution. Tao San delivers a powerful sword strike, surrounded by dark energies. He reports that his body is beginning to change, and explains that this is due to the awakening of his demonic power. The guy says he's actually human. The man asks if he's scared. Tao San explains that the source of the disaster's special powers is their blood, and that Al was born with this blood, the child of a human and a demon, making Al half disaster. The woman says there's nothing right or wrong in blood and commands us to punish the bad and save the innocent and to live like a human being. The man says to eradicate evil. Tao San hopes to be the I Tao San believes in and wants to live in such a way that he can say he wasn't wrong. Tao San says he will kill each of them with his own hands. He looks forward with concentration. He abruptly lowers his hand down, causing a powerful explosion of fire that engulfs the street. Tao San says he's relieved. The woman with glasses says it was close, and the guy with the dog next to him remains silent. The woman says the case is closed and offers to take Yuki-chan to the hospital, asking Tao San if Luca can stand. He names Alma. Yuki asks if he's scared and remains silent. Tao San says thank you very much. Tao San says, uh-huh. The woman with glasses says, uh-huh. The man in the truck makes a ha sound. He wonders how much yakiniku he could eat at a barbecue restaurant if he had 5 million yen. The man explains that if Tao San has money to spend, he pays first. Tao San says he wonders how much money they could make if he became an artist and sold wall art, then says he needs a vacation. The woman reads the newspaper, says, and ignores Tao San. Then Tao San responds to a knock on the door. The guy asks how they're doing and says he brought food. He's surprised and asks if the guy's in trouble again, to which he replies that no, everything was quick today. The guy shows the bag of money and explains that some of it is wet. He explains that the reason is, the woman says that one day, when Tao San sells his drawings, he can treat her to dinner. Tao San says this with a cheeky smile. He's snoring on the bed. The woman says it's time for them to get up. He asks if it's work. The woman replies it's time to go home. He's surprised. Tao San asks if there are any cigarettes, and the man says he left them on the table. The man explains he only has a lighter and suggests stopping by the store on the way back, and Tao San agrees. The man and Tao San approach the door. The man rings the doorbell, and he reports that he won 5 games of rock, paper, scissors in a row yesterday. The guy asks Tao San what he thinks he should use next time. The man says scissors will lose, then says rock. Tao San explains it's because he's unlucky at betting and size. The woman says oh ho hoo. He and the man are standing at the door. Alma greets them, says it's been a while since they last saw each other, and wishes them a warm welcome. Alma asks Tao San how he's been, and the man remarks that Alma has grown up again. The guy says it's only been a month since their last meeting. The woman says he's too excited. Tao San calls her by her name, Dara. The guy agrees with her. He says that he doesn't like it, and that it would be better if he was cut open. The woman explains that Tao San is in pain shock, and the other woman says that he should try. Tao San says it's one of my 3 most hated sensations. The man asks which one is number 1. The guy replies he doesn't know. The man asks, so which one? The guy explains that as much as he'd like to replace Tao San's weapon is made from his blood, so he'll have to undergo regular checkups and donate blood. He explains that this is all he has now, but he'll be making more soon, so Tao San will have to come back for them and hands over the pills. The woman says they're done and the guy did a good job, and the guy agrees. The girl with the camera says, ah. The woman says Tao San needs a rest, although she doesn't think he's even listening to her, and Tao San agrees. The man says he doesn't have to avoid donating blood for the rest of his life. The man asks why Tao San is always so negative when donating blood. The woman explains. The woman reports that he gave them a tip about a cemetery in the southern part of the Fudo district, and that people had been disappearing there for the past few days. He explains that only bodies are missing, and that money, belongings, and clothes are not touched, and that the kidnapper doesn't care whether it's an old man, a child, a woman, or a man. The woman announces that this is their next assignment. Tao San asks for just 3 minutes, explaining that he needs to replace the blood he lost. The man says he's been wondering what the backpack is for, and praises Tao San for his foresight. The other man wishes them a safe journey. The woman says they'll see each other again. The man says that when he says goodbye, he always tells them to be careful because it reduces the risk of accidents, and asks them to be careful at work and while driving. Tao San announces that they're leaving. Tao San says that it stinks in here, a terrible stinking smell, and it's gloomy. The man says, "Ah." The man turns to the guy saying, "Hey, you." The man reports that they are there. The man says it's not because he's not scared, but because he has people there he cares about. A man says he's been smoking for 20 years and plans to quit. A man explains he came to the graves to remember the dead. A man places a bucket under the faucet to collect water. A man places a cigarette butt in a glass filled with sand. A man prays at the graves. Tao San says he wasn't sick, but the man says he was killed. He says they're problem solving, so all you have to do is ask and they'll sort it out. The guy says he'll then find out who did it. The man explains that he's sorry. Tao San says everything is fine. Tao San explains that his father was the one who killed his grandfather, and last year he died in prison due to illness. The boy asks why. The guy says that since then he doesn't remember how many times he wished him dead. The man explains that he doesn't even remember anymore. The guy apologizes and says he knows it's weird to talk about something like that so suddenly, and explains that he simply couldn't tell anyone about it. The woman remains silent. Tao San says they're ready to listen to the other man. The man says he can pay with cigarettes. Tao San looks puzzled. He says, "Well then." The man says, "Uh-huh." The man takes a cigarette and lights it, then exhales smoke. Tao San says that, as expected, the smell is calming. He explains that his father never worked a day in his life, and when he spent all of his grandfather's money, he forced him to work from childhood and beat him if he disobeyed. The boy says every day was torture and made him sick. He explains that he only didn't want to commit suicide because his grandfather was with him. The man reports that one day his grandfather became very ill from overwork and asks Isato for forgiveness. The guy says he hopes he'll get better soon and be able to smoke again, but for now he'll keep the cigarettes. The man says he'll be fine and suggests they go out to eat when he gets better. The guy remains silent. The man starts talking. The boy says he would have been at his high school graduation that day if he'd attended any school. On his way home from work, he bought his grandfather's favorite sushi, and in his mind's eye, he could already see his smiling grandfather congratulating him on his graduation. The boy says, the guy starts to speak, but doesn't have time to finish. The man asks why. Tao San screams, "Why did he do that?" The man says that when he gets the money, the first thing he'll eat is eel. He says he can't wait. The man asks, what? The guy says that salary is tomorrow and asks if this is true, and the man says that he will leave it on the table. Tao San says that at that time he was very angry with himself for not being able to say anything in response. The man reports this. The man asks Isato if he did anything wrong. He tells him that Isato isn't the one to blame. Isato explains that perhaps, because of his kindness, he blamed himself for everything. The woman apologizes for wasting her time and thanks him, and the man says he feels a great sense of relief. Dao San says the man doesn't look well. The man hands Dao San a business card for a Gokuraku troubleshooting company and warns him not to get nervous, lest he go bald. He asks if he wants to get back in the car and see how it goes, and the man agrees. The man asks Isato if he did anything wrong, and Isato remains silent. Dao San says it's possible the reason is that the other man is so kind and blames himself for everything. The man says he's sure his grandfather would say the same, but he's not kind, he's just weak. The guy says, "Now." The guy reacts sharply and screams. He and the other guy express surprise. The monster attacks the guy, emitting a sinister laugh. The monster says it's hungry. The man gasps and expresses surprise. Tao San jumps and strikes the monster, sending it flying backwards. He tells Alma-kun that he'll explain later and apologizes to Isato, shouting at the same time. Alma-kun turns to Tao San in surprise. He reports that they've finally arrived and then says he's sick of waiting. The woman calls Tao San and he says he's suddenly gotten so worked up and will deal with them himself. The woman confirms this with the word, "Uh-huh." Tao San picks up a knife. He picks up an axe covered in blood. The man below says in surprise that it's blood and asks if it's from Alma. The monster tries to pronounce the word human and calls it a disaster. Dao San delivers a powerful blow and the man next to him is surprised. He says this is what happens when you involve civilians and asks if this is what the rumors were about. The man responds with fear and asks what that is. Tao San explains that these monsters are called disasters and are similar to demons or something similar. The boy says he read about something similar in fairy tales as a child and is trying to comprehend what he heard. Tao San explains that disasters are created from reanimated bodies and for this reason. The guy asks if Alma-kun is human. He says that he is human but not quite ordinary. The man says he shares their blood and is undoubtedly a disaster. He explains that if he is a disaster, then why did he save the man, and why is he killing his own kind? The man expresses bewilderment at what is happening. Dao-san reports that he is alone. The man says things are bad. He tells him that he must do something and cannot kill the child, forcing him to take pity on him since he is all alone. The creature tries to say something, but he stops him and asks if he could have spoken normally from the beginning, promising to listen and beg for mercy. The creature. The monster says that the one who turned him into a monster who needs to feed on human bodies to survive is to blame for everything, and explains that if you don't eat, you'll die, but you can't just go and die of hunger. Tao-san says that he must therefore kill the man he is talking to. The man reacts with bewilderment. He says he has to do something. The man says he feels really bad. The man coughs and says ah. The man says ga. The man says he feels bad, really bad. The man says the name Isa. Isato asks for help. Tao-san is surprised and asks why he's doing this. The woman with the gun explains that it's just a memory from the past, trapped in this pile of flesh, and that this creature is no longer his father. The man next to the woman makes a sound of surprise. The boy says he had no other choice. The man explains that with that money, the boy could have gone to school and wouldn't have had to work anymore, so he did it for him. He shouts Isato's name. The man says he's always been more afraid of Isato than demons. The boy says he was always connected to the word family and wanted to go to school and also wanted his grandfather to live forever. The man says he's not family and asks him to just disappear. Dao-san says he's sorry to hear that and says, oh well. He then strikes, saying, little piece of shit. He delivers a powerful blow to the monster. A man and a woman watch what is happening. The man says that Isato knows how to get angry. Tao-san tells you to live your life to the fullest for him and apologize to him in the afterlife when you die. He says that he will do so, confirming that the interlocutor is right. The man thanks. Tao-san says he's glad they're okay. The top right corner shows the Gokuraku district at night. In the lower right corner, a man is removing a black bandage from his neck, breathing heavily. In the lower left corner, a woman is breathing heavily and clutching her throat with her hands. Tears and sweat are flowing. In the upper left corner, a woman is. The guy says, heh. The very top right corner shows a sign with the name of the Gokuraku Gai district. In the lower right corner, Dao-san is squatting and eating, and next to him, a man is sitting on a box and smoking. The man announces that this is Chapter 3 and a failure. He shouts. The woman and he are cooking in the kitchen. The woman says that Alma should hurry with the third number, to which he replies that he understands. The man says they're always busy, so he needs to get to work and work harder to pay the bill. He asks why they're always busy when he arrives. A woman from another room apologizes and says, Table 5 asked for cold water and promises it will be right away. The woman says, Tao-san says, hey, asshole. The man makes a sound, ugh. He says it's Tatsuemi-san. The woman says there are only 2 of them here. He calls someone a cheapskate. Tao-san announces that he's brought something and explains that he's obtained new information with a price cap of 5,000 yen. The man warns them not to touch Tao-san, and Tao-san says it's to see Tao-chan. The man adds that he didn't touch her. He says he has enough money and everything is fine, and then says that this old man is not a girl. The man hands over the money and thanks. Dao-san reports that many similar corpses have been found recently, and this one was found at the Meido Shrine in the 7th quarter. The man asks if it's a hanging. Dao-san explains that it probably isn't. The man suggests that some twisted artist could have done it. He says that if there were corpses on Gokuraku, the disasters would have eaten them, and the man reports that none of the hanged people were eaten, which means Tao-san says the handprints are quite large, and that's odd. He explains that disasters don't usually kill people to eat them. The man reports that these people were strangled and then hung on ropes like street decorations. Tao-san explains that whoever did this seems to. The man reports that all the victims were women. He says that this may be the person the man is looking for. The guy asks who the person Dao-san is looking for is, how long they've known each other, and whether she trusts him. Dao-san says he'll only give up the information for 1 million. The woman tells the guy not to get carried away and calls him a greedy bastard, and the guy calls him Dao. The woman explains what she wants to say, and is sure the man didn't receive this information from her. He says he was caught and asks why his voice is so high-pitched. He yells that he's not lying and calls the man a coward and a liar. The man explains what he thought. Tao-san reports that, as expected, no one comes here. A man stands at the gate of a Shinto shrine. He explains that a god resides here, so the shrine cannot be moved. He says that the buildings were built around the temple so as not to disturb the god, and that the temple should not have been built in such a small space. He says that he doesn't believe in gods, and if they exist, then let them do their job better. Par. Tao San asks to be spared from searching for the disaster. A woman stands next to him. The adjacent panel shows folded palms. The woman says that they came here today to pray for good luck. He says that he wants to ask for good luck too. Tao San reports that God has already chosen who he will punish today. The woman says they must delight him with an excellent performance. He says it's time for punishment. The man says they hadn't been out in a while and there's very little food. The creature says he's hungry and that he came late but found bones. The monster on the right says the word real. Then there is a sudden movement or blow to the monster. Tao San says he can't let them pass and explains that if they pass, it will all be over. He attacks the monsters. The man fires a pistol at the monsters. Tao San notices this and says, "Oh." He yells, "Ora A," and delivers a blow that sends rocks flying. The creature reports that it's a good pass. The creature is hit in the chest. The monster gnashes its teeth. The monster grabs the man and slams him into a tree. Tao San jumps with his weapon, preparing to strike the monster. He delivers a powerful kick to the monstrous creature's chest, causing it to be thrown back and make a loud sound. The woman advises against overdoing the destruction, or Yoki will start crying again, and says it was Tao San who blew off the statue's head. The man explains that no matter what they do, they only get more, calling them a pain in the ass. The woman says that weaklings like them are not capable of doing anything on their own. Then she shoots a gun. The woman strikes the creature, which begins to burn and disintegrate. She then clamps her jaw on the creature, causing it to look surprised. The woman reports that this is disappointing. The man delivers a powerful blow to the creature's chest. A woman reports that a gun is firing. A man fires a gun. The image contains no speech bubbles or text, only a scene of 3 men fallen to the ground. No one speaks or communicates anything. The woman reloads her pistol and strikes the enemy in the head, then fires a shotgun at the approaching monsters. The man reports that the temple has burned down and he can no longer pray. The woman explains that it doesn't matter because it belongs to her now. The woman says they might make a great baseball duo. Tao San asks if she's seen him hit a home run. The woman says the guy doesn't know anything about baseball. He says, "Yeah," then offers to light it. He lights the woman's cigarette. Tao San asks where the other person wants to go next. The other person happily says they'll have sushi at Suki today, as they're currently running a tuna special that he saw advertised. He says he can't understand why they can't just go to a restaurant, and explains that there are plenty of good places in the area. The man reveals that this place is their secret hideout and explains that only a select few go there. Tao San announces that they've finally returned. The girl says that Tao Chan did everything in his power for Yaya and helped them a lot, and thanks him. The man explains that he was trying to admire the sight of Yaya Chan at work, but then something happened that made him look like. He says the coupon for a free taiyaki expires today. He says they passed by, but he completely forgot, and remarks that it looks like the store closes at 9 p.m. The man asks Tao San if he wants anything, to which he replies no. The man says, Tao San says he'd like the other person to continue to fail, if that's the way it goes, and offers his perspective. The man explains that it would be terrible if the person the other person is looking for turned out to be a disaster, adding that the other person hadn't even considered that. He says goodnight. The man replies goodnight. The man sits down in a chair and turns on the TV. Tao San says the food looks delicious, and he'll come home and eat it all in front of the TV. Then Tao San says he's curious about how the temple cleaning went. The man reports that the two are silently looking into each other's eyes, and he asks who it is. Tao San says, "Ah," then says, and then swears he's not a criminal. He reports that he was just walking around and somehow ended up here, then noticed a blue cloth covering one of the komainu and became curious. Cao San says he didn't break komanu and swears it on his word of honor. The man screams and grabs Tao San by the collar, demanding an explanation. He says he's not lying, and that's exactly what he was talking about. He says the other one looked suspicious. The man explains that he's older than Yaya and knows she'll be more level-headed. He replies that he's 21 and doesn't cry, and the man asks. Tao San says there's nothing he can do about it. He then explains that if the guy gets into trouble, he'll handle it for him and asks him to call them any time. He says, by the way. The man asks why he's whining and lost his bearings. He explains that it's not that, he was just very surprised when the man called out to him, and adds that the man simply scared him. Tao San says the other guy came out of nowhere. He remains silent. He says that if there is only one, then there will be less, but they are already free, and he will lose his share if he. The man asks how he found out. Tao San asks if the man is an adult and if he likes sweets, and the man replies, yes, of course. Tao San shows the man a fish-shaped sweet and says, here. The man asks if he's sure, to which Tao San confirms. He says he's an adult. The man says he wanted to watch something at 9, so he has to go. The woman says, and Tao-san says the man seems lethargic, so he should sit down and eat and stop acting like a little kid. The man explains, thank you. He reports that he is back. Dao-san announces that he's late and admits that it's well past 9. The man says welcome back and notes that Dao-san is late. He reports that there was some strange guy at the temple. The man asks if this strange guy is. Tao-san explains that he had never seen him before, so he knew he was not from the snake's lair and called out to him, and also explains that he was an adult, but seemed lost like a child, easily moved to tears, and his stomach was growling. He asks if he can switch to channel 10. The man says that's how he found out who he is. He says, oh. A guy is sitting on a bench. He's holding a fish made of dough. The guy says, here it is. The man comes up and says he's already looked everywhere. The man puts his hand on the guy's shoulder. Tao-san, says Yoru. He invites the man to sit down and offers him a piece. The man is surprised and asks what happened. He explains that he was given it just recently and hasn't tried it yet, so he shares it with the man. The man takes the piece and begins to eat. Tao-san says he doesn't often get close to anyone and asks who gave it to him. The man explains it was a gift from a friend. The guy says, oops, and says he just realized he didn't ask his name. Tao-san says to Yoru. Tao-san says he gave it to him. Yoru says bingo. He says bingo and remains silent. Tao-san asks Yoru what he thinks about someone, to which Yoru says that he was a little scared, but he doesn't think the person is a bad guy. The boy makes slurping sounds and is perplexed. The man asks Yomi-san how he knows if he hasn't seen him yet. The man says he's been watching him for a while and says hello. Tao-san says he's already been rejected once and will definitely greet him the next time he sees him. The man replies that he doesn't know when that next time will be. The man says that Yomi-san can meet him anytime, and Yomi-san says that she just doesn't know, even now. Tao-san says it's a shame and explains that he has a theory. When people are deprived of their constant, they become most vulnerable. He asks how the man would feel if his favorite candy suddenly disappeared from the store. The man says he'd be shocked. He says that until someone from his circle becomes his constant, he will wait. The guy says everything is fine. Tao-san says there's something to remember. The man asks the boys what they're doing here. The woman and her friend say they're very lucky and ask for a moment. She also asks what happened to the man's brother, but reassures them that they shouldn't be afraid of them. The guy says they just had a few drinks. He explains that they're now looking for another bar. The woman says she wants to join them. The woman on the right says she can't breathe. The woman on the left is silent. The man in the center grabs both women by the throat. The woman on the left and the woman on the right are struggling to free themselves, choking. The man below is breathing heavily. Ao-san says he didn't think his interlocutor would do it here, but it seems he was wrong. The man stands with his hands raised, surrounded by broken bottles. He says that whatever happens, it will be entertaining. Then he laughs, and the other man tries to understand what's going on. He suddenly grabs the man's face, and the man makes a pained sound, trying to understand the situation. The man gasps and tries to speak, making hoarse sounds, his eyes wide with fear. He makes intermittent sounds and screams. Then the man screams loudly and sharply. A thick liquid begins to flow out of him, dripping down and forming a puddle. The man continues. Tao-san says the man couldn't even stand on foot and calls it a disappointment. The man turns to Yomi, and Yomi responds with a question. The man reports that the man showed no mercy whatsoever to a dark-haired girl named Yoru. He says he's happy. The man says, of course. The woman says she just lit a cigarette, has already eaten sushi, and is drinking black coffee. Dao-san says he gave someone their business card, so if anything happens, maybe they'll meet again. Dao-san then shows off the taiyaki with a side dish and explains that he brought the couple a taste. He explains that perhaps nicotine dulls the taste buds, and says that he knows he doesn't care about weird food combinations, and also says that this may sound hypocritical, but he eats a lot. Dao-san says he doesn't mind Al handing out business cards, but asks him to remember to ask for the names of suspicious individuals. Al understands and says it's okay, he'll just remember to ask next time. Dao-san and Al wish each other bon appetit. He says there's no work left. The man with glasses says he apologizes for making them come so early and asks them to wait a little, promising to find something for them. Tao-san says that the disasters have not stopped appearing, and the man reports that they have not stopped appearing at all. He says it was her. Tao-san says that she certainly helps them, but it's unclear why she works so hard. Tao-san explains that she's a workaholic who hates losing, and that he told her to take a day off, but she didn't listen. The woman says, look, speak of the devil. He explains that the door is closed. Tao-san announces she's back and explains, it's another day and another instant kill. All the weak have been wiped out. The animal-headed man shouts, "Ni!" The boy says, "Ooh," adding that it's all thanks to someone. Tao San says, "Ouch!" The girl says that everything is thanks to her and asks to praise her. The woman reports that there's no one in the room, and the guy says it's strange. Tao San exclaims in surprise, and the man with the tail and the other man are also surprised by the woman's appearance. The woman announces the title, Gokoroku Guy. The woman explains that this is chapter 5 and Nei Keiji. The guy says he's glad the girl is okay and explains that they're worried because she always walks alone. The girl asks if they're worried and says she's never returned wounded. The man with glasses replies that he hasn't. Then the man falls silent. The guy says, as expected, from the girl. Dao-san and the woman are sitting on the couch. The woman is smoking, the girl is sitting with her eyes closed and her arms crossed. The woman says, The woman explains that the girl is too arrogant for Kohai. The girl yells that she didn't mean it that way and asks what she should have done. The man says the girl just saw their example. Tao-san says that he sees that his interlocutor is still the same annoying girl. The girl says the guy is being rude. The guy starts to respond that he's better than the girl and older, but the girl interrupts, saying he's only a year older and calls him crazy. The man asks the girl to calm down and comments on the situation, saying, "Well, that's just it." Tao-san apologizes for the wait and says he bought the information from Tatsuyomi. He explains that signs of disaster were spotted near the Sakamachi shopping mall, and the shopping area itself is almost completely abandoned, so it was discovered too late. Tao-san explains that several old merchants. The woman says that Alma and Tao will be enough to deal with this. The man with the mask says to prepare for. The girl says she'll do it. The man says that if the task is for two, she can handle it alone. He won't damage the property, so there's no need to pay, and shouts, "Hey, hey." The wolf says that if Tao doesn't mind, then the girl says he sees no reason to complain or stop her. The man with the cigarette explains that everything suits him. Dao says the girl has more than enough free time. Dao exclaims in surprise. The girl asks not to sleep. Tao-san tells them to take cigarettes and Chinese steamed buns. The girl says she shouldn't run their errands because Tao-san stole their jobs. He says the girl is too stubborn and that he will go himself. The man warns the girl not to follow him and explains that they need to work together. The woman asks why the girl is so arrogant and asks Tao-san to say something. The woman says that if the two can get along and resolve the matter, she will treat them to meat using Yoki's money. The boy and girl agree. The girl asks why the guy is following her, and Tao-san replies that together they will finish faster. He says he doesn't understand. The girl asks what he's talking about and says that he can't do anything. The woman asks Dao-san if he's kidding and if he told Alma something, to which Dao-san replies that that's not the point. The man asks what the woman is talking about, and the woman explains that Alma doesn't remember anything. The girl replies that the point is that he says that the interlocutor has a weakness. The woman says the problem is that he doesn't even know about her. The woman says she's sure he doesn't even remember his weakness. Tao-san says of course. The girl says she knew it. He says that he'll figure it out soon, one way or another. He asks what the problem is and says the girl is being overly dramatic. He notices the mess around and the girl explains that it's somewhere around here. Dao-san says it's boring and needs to be over with, but he doesn't see any trouble. Then Dao-san notices a test tube and asks what it is. The girl explains it's her blood. Dao-san asks what her blood is needed for. The girl explains it has a magnetic effect on. He reports the appearance of something unexpected. He and the girl notice approaching ghostly creatures, and the girl expresses her surprise. Tao-san says the enemies are coming at him like a fish at a worm, and the girl screams that she'll cut him down. Tao-san orders them to stop talking and announces that he speaks with bewilderment. The woman says that this is his weakness. The woman says that the restrictions cannot be lifted without Dao's permission. She explains that this is a decision. Tao-san says he can't fight without Tao-san. The man explains that this is exactly how it is, and that the boy will only get in the way if he stands to the side, and also asks him to watch his senpai carefully. The woman says don't blink, and that it will all be over in the blink of an eye. He says that. The woman states that these creatures cannot be destroyed by conventional weapons, and explains that to destroy them, one must use a special weapon, which she holds in her hands. Dao-san informs him that if he fails to win, he will die. Dao-san takes up his katana. He says the girl is absolutely stunning. The girl remains silent. The man apologizes and explains that he was mistaken and didn't mean it that way, and the girl asks what he just said. He exclaims that he screwed up. The girl says she's amazing, the fastest in the entire snake pit, the most productive worker, and also sweet, selfless, reliable, and eats vegetables. She adds that he's the only one who didn't know about it. Tao-san says he understands and asks for silence. He says that he wants to know why the girl wants to be better so badly. The girl explains that she wants to be admired because she wants to hear compliments every day, every minute, every second, and that's why she tries so hard. The guy says he has free time today. The man says he can relax and not think about work. A building with signs is shown on the street. Tao-san is lying on the floor and is silent. Then Tao-san says, "Ugh." He says it's too late. The man says he's coming in and greets Tao-san, saying good morning and that it's time to get up. He remains silent. Tao-san says there's nothing to do today, and the weather is nice, so he wants to take his futon outside to dry and does the laundry, asking for everything he needs to wash. Tao-san says that since the girl is going to smoke, she should sit on the sofa and invites her to do so. He explains that casting pearls before swine is like giving something valuable. The other man says it's clear. The man announces the time as 11:00. Dao-san says hi to everyone, the guy replies. Oh, and the man greets them. The man asks Luca how he's doing and remarks that his wounds have healed, which Luca confirms. Dao-san explains that he said the man was just messing around, and Luca calls out. He asks for a job, and the other guy says he'll take him for a ride, after which he yells, "Hey." The woman says they just came to tell him that Yuki was discharged, and thanks them again, inviting them to come if they need help. The girl says they're serious. Tao-san asks if it's possible to make takoyaki at home. The man tells him that everyone in Kansai has a takoyaki grill. Tao-san is surprised and asks if that's true. The man explains that such a thing can't be true and asks him not to call him about such trivial matters. Tao-san calls on the phone. He says he has one at home and says he wasn't talking about the man he was talking to. The man asks if he could bring it over to them, and he explains that he wouldn't carry such a huge thing for anything in the world and says he wants to try to find. Tao-san announces the time as 2000 p.m. Then a door appears with a sign and the time is 4000 p.m. Tao-san in the car says, The guy yells, "Oh," and calls Isato, and the man reacts with surprise. The guy in the car waves his hand and says that Isato should try harder. Tao-san says takoyaki. The man says that Tao-san is a dunce after all. He asks the girl if she has ever made takoyaki, and the girl replies that she doesn't understand what he's talking about. Tao-san asks the girl if she'd like to try it and if she finds it interesting. The girl replies that she's not particularly interested. Tao-san asks if that's how she cooked it, to which the girl replies that she didn't, but the guy says that rest is also a very important part of the job. The girl says she'll do it because Yoki said so, and in any case, she's confident she can do it better than him. Tao-san says ba-ba-ba-ba-bam and says he's come in response to the call. Tao-san is surprised and says it's not just Tao-chan but also Dara-chan and Nai-chan. The woman asks Rai what this is. He says that even though the girl is cold, she's as sweet as ever. The girl replies that, of course, she's sweet. The man says it's difficult. He explains that in his next life, the man wouldn't be able to defeat him. The man calls Tao-san a cheater, and Tao-san says that Nai-chan even likes her takoyaki and gives in, and the man is indignant. What do you mean, see? Tao-san says the first batch is ready and keep it up. The man says he made the takoyaki and it's from him. The woman replies, oh. The man says he's leaving the tray. He says it's time to eat, and the man says, well, well. He tries the food and shouts that it's hot, and the man reminds him not to forget to blow on the stove. The wolf and the girl say the food is delicious. The man asks if it's delicious. Tao-san says Nai-chan's cooking has made him so hungry he could eat a whole horse, and asks how much longer he plans to smoke. Tao-san says he'll put some sausage in it. The woman explains it's delicious. The girl asks if she can cook for him next time. The woman reports that he was bitten in other places. The man says he has no doubt about it. He says this is the fourth. The woman says there are a lot of cameras in the area, and if anyone sees her throwing out trash, they'll call the police. She explains that's why she has to throw out trash at night. The guy says there are a lot of girls in the area who don't know how to cook. Tao-san explains that they don't know how to cook because they don't want to. He says it's either the same person who was at the temple or someone similar, and he comes about once a week, so they'll have to wait. He says they'll have to wait for information from this merchant again, to which the woman replies that they'll check around and then go home. The man says there are a lot of cameras in the area, and the girl explains that they can't afford to be seen. Tao-san remains silent and taps his hood. He asks if the man has a headache. The man starts stuttering and asks to move away, warning that his head is fine. He says the man scared the crap out of him. The man screams and the girl walks away. Tao-san tells the guy to move away from him. The guy asks what, and Tao-san repeats that he should move away. The girl starts to speak, but is interrupted. The guy suddenly grabs Tao-san's hands and says that he said, hey. Tao-san yells, no, oh, and the guy is surprised. He says that when a girl says she's fine, she's definitely not, and adds that at least that's what Yaya told him. The girl apologizes and says she didn't mean it, and also says she's completely fine, asking him to remember that. The man says the girl is L. Dao-san asks to go with him and promises to take him somewhere cool. The guy replies, "Oh." The girl says she's still a little hungry. He says the girl was nervous because she was hungry and that it's so great he could eat here every day, but the girl says there are hardly any customers and it's a real hidden gem. The girl asks for some, he offers her some, the girl thanks him and says she'll try. Dao-san says he's never eaten anything more delicious in his life, and it's so delicious. Dao-san asks for a napkin and tells her to wipe herself, to which the girl thanks him. Dao-san explains that it's important to remember to ask the names of suspicious individuals. The girl says her name is Kanata, and Dao. He wishes him a safe journey home, and the girl agrees. The girl asks Cao-san to wait and says she wants to eat with him again, if he doesn't mind, of course. The girl asks if Tao-san is okay with it. Tao-san says, why not? The girl is surprised and says it's true. Tao-san replies, of course. The girl says she'll wait for Dao-san at the same place and says goodbye until tomorrow. He replies that he understands and also says goodbye until tomorrow. The man shouts, "Hey!" A man on TV is talking about a dish. Tao-san says it's filling and delicious, and the girl says it really is. Tao-san and the girl smile and eat together. He says he'll walk the girl home. The girl is surprised, and he explains that girls need to be walked home. That's what Yaya told him. The girl says that if it causes any inconvenience, it's okay. He smiles and says goodbye to Alma, saying, see you soon. Tao-san asks if that's his job and says that even though they're the same age, he's already working, which is really cool. The girl explains that it's really cool, and then she knows who to call if she has any problems. Tao-san adds that he also takes out bad guys, Dev. He tells her that the cat from Shijimi-san is named Michelangelo, and is surprised. He says that this thing ate 2,000 of his, and he asks why he wanted it so badly. He explains that he likes Mike too, and shows her the figurine. Tao-san says he should smile more often because a girl's best makeup is her smile. The girl says she used to like the show too, but hasn't had a chance to watch it lately. The girl is surprised and blushes. He says thank you. The girl says she'll go on her own and asks him to forgive her for sending her away. He replies that in that case, she can call anytime. The girl reacts to this. The man squeezes the girl's hand, making a pained sound, and says, First, the sounds of vomiting are heard from the sink. The guy apologizes and coughs. Tao-san breathes heavily, says, twice, then says, The man explains that it's not safe for the girl to be walking alone at such a late hour. The woman begs for mercy. The man tells her she's asking for it. The woman screams for him to stop and get away, explaining she doesn't want to eat anyone else. The man smiles. The woman cries. The guy says it hurts and asks what the hell they did. The man says, "Oh, what?" Top right, a man says he's not faking it. Top left, a man demands an ambulance, to which another man reassures that an ambulance has already been called. Bottom right, a man explains that the girl was a monster and bit his hand, and another man explains that she's not human and asks if. On the top right edge is a caption stating that this is a separate story. In the top right, Tao-san sits with food in his hands, a cheeky, fanged smile on his face. To his left, a woman with a long braid and glasses leans on the table, holding chopsticks. He says that stealing is prohibited in this area. He says that the other person acted recklessly. Tao-san says he has no money, so he had to do it. The woman remains silent and thinks it's stupid. The image shows the Tokaraku district, which is described as a special outlaw district where the Hell Squads rule. Dao-san says such cases are not uncommon these days, and directors of large companies are often caught engaging in illegal activities with beastmen. The man on screen expresses shock. The woman says they are perverts. The man says he didn't intend to take half the money and run away, but the other man, looking at him, says it's a lie. He says the man is lying. The guy explains to Dao-san that the man is lying to them and the woman is silent. The man says that if the deal comes to light, there's no escape, and asks if they're the only ones he can trust. He also says that he probably took the entire amount with him, which is in his bag, in case the negotiations fail. Dao-san explains that there are no discounts and not a single yen, the money. The man apologizes. He explains that the man makes a good lie detector and then asks what he means. Tao-san says the place is like China and says you can find anything you want here. He explains that there are many shops and restaurants in the area and explains that he plans to try the local food. The man says that if you push it too far, then the man says, huh? He explains that the man has a face like a gorilla and punches him. He says that he is a champion. The man says, hey. Tao-san is silent. Tao-san says, hey. Tao-san notices the wallet and says, "Ah." The man yells, "Stop," and grabs Tao-san. He says it's his money and it can't be stolen. The girl says she doesn't have any money. The guy says he seems to still have some fixers left and shows them, saying he works there. The girl asks about the fixers, after which she explains that she and Dao-san and Gokuraku solve everyone's problems and will help in any situation if someone gets into trouble. Dao-san says that it seems. He asks and says, "Okay." The woman with glasses asks Aruma where he was hanging out and what it was. She explains that some men got into a fight on the way and he had to answer them, and also asks if he stole the gun. Aruma says he just took it to look at it. Tao-san says he might have fired the gun if it weren't for the safety catch. The man hopes Tao-san didn't fire it, but Tao-san says the trigger didn't pull for some reason. The man exclaims, "Yay!" The woman tells Balbacina that it's too early for him to hold a gun, as he could accidentally shoot someone. The woman explains that she couldn't pass by because she was asked for help and demands that he leave. He says he's not afraid and asks him to talk about the problem. The girl says she just asks not to tell anyone. The man warns him not to do that. The girl says it hurts. Tao-san says he's never met a mermaid and explains what it means for a girl to be a mermaid. The girl says the word mermaid. The man explains that he's not surprised by anything in this area anymore, but some rich pervert would go crazy. The girl says she has no money left and no medicine. The man puts money and coins on the table and says that this is all he has and offers to take everything, but asks to save his sisters. He says that no one else will help except them and turns to the woman with a request to tell. Tao-san says she is Nene, a mermaid, and until recently lived in the sea with her mother and sisters, Yona and Yuma. She explains that one day they drank some medicine and came ashore with their mother. Tao-san explains that in the city, in an old house, there lived one. The man explains that the medicine that turns them into humans is expensive, and they're gradually running out of money. Then the man explains that their father started beating them. The guy asks if he doesn't owe anything anymore. The man laughs and says take them. The girl asks him to wait. Tao-san explains that he's all alone in the city and asks her not to leave him alone. A woman asks for her sisters back. A dark-haired man explains to another man that the situation is complicated. Tao-san reports that a deal has been reached. The man yells that he doesn't want to. The woman says she hasn't done anything yet. The man asks if she's going to do anything else. The woman replies that she doesn't. The man asks for help for free next time. Then Dao-san grabs the man by the collar and says he was joking when he mentioned Celine's club in the third quarter. Dao-san thanks the man for Celine's club and says he can count on them in the future. The girl turns to Dao-san. He thanks her for the medicine and clothes. The girl says she still can't believe someone in this city agreed to help her. The man invites her to sit with him. The woman explains that there are a lot of scoundrels in their neighborhood who live off the weak, and she hates them. Tao-san says he hates them too. The man says they'll save the girl's sisters and punish all the villains. The girl confirms this. The man from the aquarium curses and says that if he catches that boy again, he'll ask why he passed out so quickly, the girl from the aquarium. He announces that the fixers are in the building, and the woman says hello. The man with the jaguar's head says he's the man today and calls the other man the biggest brat. The man demands they don't interfere with his business and says they've also trashed everything. The girl screams for her, now, to be returned. The woman reports that they are facing a woman and 2 children. A man with a stick warns the boys not to hold back. Dao-san says yes, and the woman explains that he's the one doing the dirty work, calling for silence. He says he won't need even 3 minutes. The girl says dinner is soon and asks if it's time for dinner already. The man confirms and suggests they move on, and the other man agrees. He explains that since that's the case then, the guy jumps and shouts, "Hoba," while simultaneously kicking the man with the staff, who falls backwards. The man with short hair and tattoos says that although he can't handle it alone, Dao-san looks forward with a cheeky smile. The man with the staff tries to land a blow. He says he can't lose because he has a dream and he's not going to give up. The man says that if he falls, he'll lose and suggests giving up. He explains that he's not going to give up and will fight to the end. Tao-san delivers a kick, flipping the opponent upside down. The man in a leopard mask tells him not to stand there and calls for him to shoot, while the other man confirms that he understands. The leopard reports that his gun was stolen and demands it back. He explains that he can't return it because his gun was confiscated. The leopard is surprised that the gun was confiscated. The woman with the gun asks who planted this and says that a good gun isn't. The girl reports that someone is behind her. The man screams, trying to fight back, and says, "Hun, nun, damn." The girl screams, "No, oh, oh," and the man hits the other man on the head with all his might, who makes a H sound. The 2 women in the water say, "Nah," nehe, in surprise. A woman fires a revolver, shattering a window. A man with fangs grabs something with his hands and asks, "What's going on?" Dao-san addresses the beast, calling out to it, trying to get its attention. He says so. The woman makes a hiya sound. The man apologizes for leaving the woman alone, explaining that they wanted to protect her. The guy calls for Yuma and Nene. The woman apologizes to Nene, and the girl apologizes as well. The man says he's crying again. Tao-san says he thinks they're not finished and asks how to explain this to him. The man, his head in the water, says, "The devil," and asks how to explain this to him. The woman says she knows the ironclad rule, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and that the guy forced others to pay off their debts with their bodies. She explains that her current employer has no money but knows a place where they'll buy anything, even a brute like him, and asks if that's reached the point. The woman explains that this is compensation for the hardships they've endured, and the man says the money will be helpful no matter where they go. The girl explains that this is more than she had before and thanks them. The woman and the girl express their gratitude with all their hearts. The woman says Dao-san thanks her, says thank you Dao. Dao-san replies, and says that Arima does too. The girl says she chose it simply because she wanted to, not out of compassion or a sense of justice, and says she could have lied if it sounded cool. The man explains they don't need any special reasons, saying they just do whatever they want. Dao-san says he needs a light, and the man asks for one. The man lights the cigarette, and Dao-san notices how active the man's stomach is. The man says he tried hard and asks if he's done well, to which Dao-san replies, "Yes, he is." The guy announces it's time to hand out the awards, and he says they'll eat meat today. The man on the corner of the first street says he'll go there. Another man says okay. The man with the cigarette asks, "Well, let's go," and the guy happily agrees. In the top right illustration, Tao-san states that this is a special illustration to celebrate the launch of the first volume. In the bottom right illustration, Tao-san and a woman stand together, the woman holding a pistol. In the large illustration on the left, Tao-san explains that this is an illustration for the opening. He thanks the Anime Yokohama store for the beautiful display. He explains that the illustration is dedicated to the launch event for the first volume and expresses his gratitude once again. He explains that the illustration was created for Jump Festa 2023. He offers congratulations. Top right panel, Dao-san says he can't afford to relax. Middle right panel, Dao-san says he can't understand the girl. Bottom right panel, Dao-san says he's not afraid. Top left panel, the girl and Dao-san make a gesture in. He says he's taking it off. The girl says okay. Then the girl raises her sword, and he steps back. Tao-san tells her that if she swallows a watermelon seed, it will grow in her stomach. The girl is indignant, saying she's already eaten a ton of them and doesn't believe it, explaining that only a complete fool would fall for such a thing and ordering her to die. The man says the girl is blaming Ta. He says that this area sells materials. He explains that everything needed for construction and repair can be found here. The man says that there are places to sit on the second floor. He explains that this place is called Rishali Gokuraku. The building from right to right is labeled Dai Sangin, Baolai, and Mahjong. Dao-san lies on the bed and is silent, then says, "Uye." The clock reads 8055. The guy says, "It's bright." He says he'll be there. He says good morning and tells them to get up. The man is silent. Tao-san reports that the weather today is perfect for drying the mattresses. He explains that today is a day off. He informs her that it's his turn to do the laundry and asks her to prepare the laundry. He also tells her not to smoke in bed and demands that she put away her cigarette. The man agrees. The guy says, "Give the devil an iron stick." The woman repeats an iron stick. Tao-san explains the meaning of the expression, "pearls before swine." The boy asks what it means, and Tao-san explains that it's the same as diamonds for him. In the upper right corner, there's a guy sitting on a couch. He's saying hello. In the center right, he and a man are greeting each other. The man asks if Yuki is completely healthy, to which he replies yes. In the lower left, he explains that he said they. Tao-san offers to order, and the boy says he's not a money bag and shouts, "Hey!" The woman says she just came by to tell him about Yuki's discharge and to thank him again, inviting him to come back if there are any problems. Tao-san wishes him a good appetite, and the girl remarks that a man says they make the best takoyaki. The man looks puzzled. The time is 1:15 p.m. Tao-san asks if it's possible to make takoyaki at home. The woman explains that Kansai residents have a takoyaki maker in every home. Tao-san is surprised and says he can't believe it. In the upper right corner, a man says he rarely gets calls on his cell phone and it's probably going to snow tomorrow. He says he has one at home and counters that he wasn't planning on calling just for that. He asks for a takoyaki maker to be brought to his place because he wants to try making takoyaki. Tao-san says he wants to try it too. The woman says she'll be back soon. He reports the sound of a slamming sound when hanging laundry on the balcony at 2003 p.m. At 4000 p.m., he is shown entering a room with a sign Gokuraku Solvers and a Do Not Disturb sign. He says, in the car. The guy tells Isato, and Isato is surprised. Tao-san says hello. In the right panel, he says Aruma. In the left panel, workers continue working on the road. Tao-san says it's takoyaki. The man says they're so carefree. He asks the girl if she has ever made takoyaki, and the girl replies with a question about what exactly. Tao-san asks if the girl cooked it like that and offers to try it, but she replies she's not particularly keen. Tao-san says it's fun, don't you think? The girl remains silent and says no. The man suggests trying it together. The girl remains silent. The dog says that to perform well on missions, you need to rest sometimes. Tao-san remains silent. Tao-san agrees and believes that her takoyaki will still be the best. He tells Amon says he rushed in response to the call. He is surprised and explains that not only Dao and Dara are here, but also Nei herself. The woman asks if he has gone to heaven. Tao-san says it's been a while, Nei. Nei replies, it has been a while, Tatsuomi, and asks not to bother her. He says that even though the girl is a pest, she's still so cute. The girl replies that of course she's cute. The man with disheveled hair and the girl look at the prepared dishes. The man says, damn. He explains that his dishes turned out worse than those of the other man, who says, Dao-san announces that the first batch of tacos is almost ready and says that even the girl's tacos are beautiful, admitting defeat. The man on the couch asks what exactly Dao-san sees. The woman with glasses talks about her tacos, and Dao-san explains that they are his tacos. Dao-san offers a large plate. He says, bon appetit, the man replies. Well, sir, and the others agree, yeah. He tries the takoyaki and says it's hot, and the man explains that takoyaki should be treated with respect, you idiot. The woman and the man talk very loudly. He asks how good it is. Tao-san says it's immediately obvious the takoyaki is delicious. The girl asks why. The woman with glasses explains that it's delicious, and the guy next to her asks how much longer Tao-san will blow on him. Tao-san and the girl are delighted. The girl asks if she can fry the next ones. The man says he didn't know Engel's law didn't apply to him. Tao-san reports that the incident in Gokuraku's third quarter, a short one-shot published in Jump PSQ Rise 2020 Winter, is a prototype of the main story, so there will be some discrepancies, but he hopes that readers will enjoy reading it. The woman remains silent. He says that she noticed and explains that he has a new friend. Tao-san screams that his hands hurt a lot. Tao-san calls to charge Eki's account. The woman remains silent. The phone rings. He says he's just going to change, and that, of course, it should have happened before lunch. The woman says he's not with me. He's surprised and asks what we have here. He exclaims, ouch, when a newspaper hits him in the face. Then he notices the photograph and says, Tao-san says he suspects someone else knows more about her than he does and asks him to take care of it. The woman says she'll take over 6th Avenue. He says, kill several times. He reports, kill several times. He says, kill several times. He reports, kill several times. He says, kill several times. He reports, kill several times. He reports, kill several times. A woman asks if a hooded man is okay. The hooded man watches silently, holding a bag. The woman says she's concerned. Tao-san says you should smile more often. The man clenches his fist. Tao-san says he's fine. The woman calls out and says, well, after all. He says, kill, several times. The man shouts Alma's name. Tao-san says there won't be any suicide at the table. The man at the table apologizes. The guy says Yomi is late and asks if he wants to explain, adding that he keeps calling them together every day. The man with the scar says he didn't ask and names someone else. The guy says vegetarians have such delicious meat, doesn't he? The man remains silent. He explains that the proverb, table manners are the face of the family, applies to the situation, and the more lively the meal, the better. Tao-san smiles. The man stands up abruptly and tells them not to change the subject. The man clenches his fist tightly. The man turns to the other man who has his head down on the table. The man says everyone's ruined his appetite and kicks a chair. He yells, hey! The woman asks Mameko to sit down and says there's no need. The man with the glass says young people are always so energetic. Tao-san informs her that she currently has 2 options. The woman with the eye patch explains that the less she wants to kill people, the more she'll want to eat them, and that soon she'll give in and return to them. The dark-haired man expresses bewilderment. A guy asks about a red-haired boy the man recently crossed paths with, and asks if he'd be happy if he became part of their family. The man asks, him? He says he'd be happy because he was kind to him. The girl asks if the man wants to bring more psychos. Tao-san informs that her place is here, among them, and his place is also right here besides. He says the call isn't going through. Then he hangs up and quickly leaves the phone booth. Tao-san says that if you think about it, the last place she would end up is a train station. A man runs down the street. The man notices something on the sidewalk. He says that then he knows who to contact if he has any problems and says to call any time. The woman explains that yes, maybe, and maybe not. He says he thinks they're looking for the wrong one. Tao-san says that after all, she is his friend, right, and confirms this with one word. Right. The woman reports that she did this. Tao-san reports that the Gokuraku District Problem-Solving Agency has arrived and is asking what the problem is. The girl explains that she believes there are several strange disaster-related incidents. He tells me to stay away from him, but he shouts why. He says that it is him. The man says that the other person probably doesn't understand what he's talking about and confirms that it's, as the man said, he's a monster. Tao-san explains that on the day she was supposed to die, she turned into what's called a disaster and asks Alma to stay away from her. He reports that from Tao-san asks why the girl called him and why she's not trying to run away, and also why she's crying. The girl makes a sound. He's silent. Then he reveals that there's something he's never told you about either. The guy says he's half the same as him. Tao-san says that the blood of both man and disaster flows through his veins. He explains that despite being half disaster, he decided to use his blood to save people and preserve humanity. The man reports that yesterday, when he told a girl named Alma that he was dealing with the bad guys, he had. He says that disasters have never hesitated to kill and devour people, and that until now, disasters were just disasters, and he killed them without hesitation. The girl reports that he is different. Tao-san reports that the swindler told him that this time the disaster only attacked bad people. The girl explains that since he met her, she hasn't killed a single person, and says she doesn't know any other disaster with such willpower. She's sure he's different, the girl tells. The boy says he wants to find more friends, make amends, and become like Alma. Alma offers to go with her to the snake's lair, where her comrades are, and explains that Eki can definitely help, and he'll join in. The boy agrees. Tao-san says it's time to get up. The girl replies yes. He reacts with surprise to the girl, who is crying and asking why this happened. The girl explains that she doesn't understand the reason for what happened. Tao-san says she's here and is surprised. The man with the wound on his hand says she did it to his hand and that he won't rest until he gets even. Another man points to the girl and says that's where she was hiding and that he was looking for her. Tao-san asks who they are. He says he's sick of the monster messing with the guy. He warns Kanata not to laugh and says he won't be able to come back. Kanata yells at them to stay back. The man with the knife explains that's what they're talking about. The guy with the fangs looks at him with. Tao-san screams in horror and pain, letting out a drawn-out cry. The man lets out a loud scream as his head is torn off. He tells Kanata to stop and asks him to stop. Tao-san yells at Kanata that he doesn't want to do this and asks if it's true. The man calls out to Kanata. Tao-san says damn several times and remembers that without permission, he can't lift the restrictions. The man yells at Kanata to come back and get back to normal. He says, oh, then grabs someone by the hand and yells, come back, repeating this several times. Tao-san says this can't be true and states that he can't die. He then screams in pain. In the top left, a man makes a pained sound. In the top right, he suddenly appears in the doorway. In the center right, a man calls out to Khan in surprise, saying he expected a different outcome. Khan, however, says they haven't seen each other in a while and considers it foolish to expect the living to act. Tao-san demands to know who he is. The man says that Tao-san already knows who he is. The man extends his hand forward. He says it's the same and asks to wait. The man informs, asking if he remembers now. Tao-san says no. The guy is shocked and doesn't understand how this is possible. The guy expresses surprise and bewilderment. In the Gokuraku district, a man announces that he will now destroy the enemy. The man holds a crystal in his hand, from which dark energy emanates. Then the man's hand shatters the floor, revealing a skeleton lying nearby. Tao-san declares that he has no intention of giving up and intends to show his full strength. He explains that his fire is not just a flame, but an expression of his will and determination. The guy reports that his body begins to burn and melt, after which he clenches his hand into a fist. Tao-san says he doesn't intend to kill. The man explains that if he kills Tao-san, he will lose everything he has. Tao-san says he has no intention of giving up. The man declares he won't let Tao-san leave alive and then sets fire to him. The boy screams in pain as he's hit and falls to the ground. He then chokes out that he just wants to be killed. Tao-san tells Alma that he hates eating because it makes him realize how lonely he is. The top panel on the right shows a man striking another man. The bottom panel on the right states that witnesses and anyone with information about the accident, which occurred at 5:25 p.m., are being sought to contact the Izumi-Sawa police station or the phone number provided. The top right panel shows a package labeled Melon Pan. In the panel to the left, a girl is leaning over a toilet. In the next panel to the left, a man says he's doing something. In the top left panel, a guy is standing in a room where another man is lying. Dao San says he thought, the woman says she didn't mean to hurt them, and the man says he regrets all the murders he committed. Tao San says to Alma and then thanks her. He says ramen is 400, tantanmen and miso ramen are 500 each, wontonmen and chashimen are 600 each, gobo soba is 700, yakisoba is 600. He says chahan is 500, oiko dan is 600, katsu dan is 650, 10 dan. Tao San says that she is apparently finished and asks if that is true. He says that even though she was disobedient, the death of a family member is still hard to bear, no matter how many times he has gone through it. Tao San delivers a powerful punch that sends the other guy flying backwards. He says, it seems. The man with disheveled hair punches and looks forward. Dao San says she enjoyed talking to the man and had an expression on her face she never showed them. He explains that when you're in distress, eating human flesh becomes the norm, but sometimes you come across such specimens. Dao San reports that, nevertheless, he says she held back for a long time just so he wouldn't hate her. Then he says, it's amazing. The man screams in pain. Tao San informs that a man must reach puberty, 15 years old after all. He says he's Oo. The man leaning against the wall is silent. The guy with disheveled hair is trying to get up. Dao San fires his pistol. A man screams from the road and grabs the hilt of his sword. He says that you can't just not get hit, it's against the rules. He says, hey. He yells, too. He strikes the man with his sword. The girl says it's annoying that he's standing there with such a straight face, and the woman agrees. The man says it's a shame, since they only just had a moment alone. The woman aims her gun, and the man remains silent. The girl screams for him to stop. Tao San says he's leaving the rest to someone else. The man says he's glad he got to see her and wishes her a quick visit, turning to Alma. A woman with a cigarette says she's heard about Tao San from her family and asks who he is. The girl and the woman express surprise. Tao San speaks to Yomi. He explains that Yomi is the place where the lives of this world return, as well as the place where they are born. He says he's just joking. The man says this report is going to be difficult. The man addresses Alma by name. Tao San says that Kanata, she? The man looks at the girl lying on the ground in flames. The man with wounds on his face silently looks forward. The girl says she truly enjoyed the food. Below is a picture of a clenched fist. Tao San says that it is amazing, isn't it, and asks if anyone remembers now, and also thanks Alma. He's lying on the bed and saying, hey. A woman in glasses is sitting opposite him. Tao San says good morning. The man says he was told he's anemic and asks if his arm, which was torn off, still hurts. Tao San replies that he's awake and agrees, then denies that his arm hurts. The woman tells him that he killed Kanata, to which he confirms it. Tao San says he's no better than his former self. The woman says what he did was the only salvation for this disaster and explains that she's sure she tried to fight her own instincts, unlike the other disasters, but she still killed people. He says it wasn't murder, but a rescue, after which she died again. The woman says it's their duty to make sure disasters go where they're supposed to. She explains that he chose this path, and they both chose it. He says it's true. Tao San reports that, thanks to their interlocutor, they have found the person behind all this, and the very fact that they have managed to find the source of the disasters is very important, even though disasters are still poorly understood. Tao San says that their interlocutor has rendered them an invaluable service. Tao San responds to this with the word ha. The woman says that in that case, blood will be pumped out. He says tada and says that he got the footage from the station's security cameras. Tao San says it's rare to hear praise from an old man, and the man says Tao San is doing his job very well. The man notices a girl on the TV screen and says she was a disaster, and Tao San adds that she's cute and a great loss for Japan. He says to Yomi, he explains that he was wearing the same ring. The man with ears and a tail expresses surprise. Tao San says that if he's their leader, that means if he's gone, no one else will turn into a disaster. The man says that it turns out he's the one who made Kanata suffer. Tao San says he'll beat him up without a second thought. He says he's fed up with not being able to help anyone, and he wants to save as many people as possible, just like he was saved. He explains that he wants to be able to save them anytime they find themselves in trouble. The woman turns to Tao San and begins to say that she. The man says he'll go gather information and asks Tao San to come with him. Tao San says he'll prepare until then. The woman replies, that's fine. Tao San and the man agree and say they understand. A guy knocks on the door. A man with a tray apologizes for the intrusion. The man with the tray explains that he ordered food from the cafeteria staff when the guy woke up and says he needs to eat a good meal first. The guy is surprised and asks if he can really eat all that. Dao-san says he needs to be careful. The guy warns him to be careful out there, and Dao-san agrees and explains that telling people to be careful can reduce the risk of accidents. The guy confirms he's heard this many times before. The woman asks the guy what he thinks about Yomi. He says that Yomi makes others do his dirty work. He explains that he's jealous that Yomi managed to attract the guy's attention. The man reports that the creature behind the hangings at Meido Temple clearly intended to kill its victims and expose itself, and it turns out that there are at least 2 or more higher-ups among the disasters. Tao-san explains that they still have no idea what their goal is. He says that with the girl's death, they have lost a valuable source of information and that a difficult road lies ahead. He asks where Nei is. The dog-headed man reacts with surprise, and the woman says that Nei is. The wolf says there's someone who could help, but he's too pushy. He explains that there's no telling what kind of hell he'll put you through. Tao-san says he can even summon Satan himself. He explains that he's concerned about finding the white-haired man as quickly as possible and cutting off his head before he gets caught. He reports that he has done everything as requested. The man explains that he is the best person for the job and asks for his help, adding that, despite his best efforts to take life circumstances into account, he will not accept refusal. The boy tells Yokii what he hates most in the world and shows him a bottle of 30-year-old sake. The wolf says that Alma is not like that at all, but the boy replies that it's still just a drop in the ocean. Tao-san says that one should not let disaster corrupt Alma's heart and that there is no right or wrong in blood. He says he's not drinking today because he has to get up early tomorrow and explains that he doesn't want to ruin the meeting. The woman says she understands and says she won't drink much either because she has important work tomorrow. Wolf says that's excellent and well said. Tao-san says he'll figure out how to get the instructor and explains that when he's ready, he should come to the second training hall at the end of the main base. He says okay and tells me to trust him. He notices that no one is here. Then he says he's curious who's coming and that he'd like to get stronger sooner. 10 minutes pass, then 30 minutes. Tao-san reports that an hour has passed. The man with the wolf's head apologizes for the wait. Tao-san says that Yoki mentioned the second hall and asks if he's come to the right one, also informing him that he's very late. The man says that Tao-san is very late. He announces that here he is, his instructor Ryu, and asks him not to be so angry. Ryu explains that once upon a time he even helped Ni and Tao and says that's enough about that. He tells him that he leaves the rest to Ryu and orders him to give it his all and R. Tao-san says he's Alma. The man asks why Tao-san was being pushed around on a cart and if his legs hurt. Tao-san asks him to wait. The man explains he doesn't understand why Tao-san drinks on the job. The man shows him a bottle and says it's tuition. The man says he doesn't care about Tao-san, doesn't care about the deaths of others, and even his own life is indifferent to him. He responds with surprise. The man says he doesn't care about the deaths of others or his own life. The man says that since he has taken on this job, he will train Dao-san according to the price paid, after which he strikes, knocking Dao-san down. Dao-san screams in pain. The man yells that Dao-san lost his temper for no apparent reason and calls him an idiot. The man explains that Dog asked him to train Dao-san to stand up for himself, and he understood that. Dao-san says he asks if the old man is in a fight and says there are no rules, and if he dies, he loses. The old man confirms and tells him to attack. He is surprised. Tao-san says he can kill him if he wants and asks not to worry, calling himself a disaster. Tao-san says ha and asks him to wait. The man says, okay, ready, set, go. Tao-san yells, stand, several times in a row. The man says he can't kill the disaster and orders the stake removed. He says he's an ordinary person and calls the man a liar. The man abruptly thrusts the stake into Dao-san's head. Tao-san screams in pain as he gets hit in the head. He says it's time for round 2 and offers to get up. He confirms it. He asks if he wants to kill him. He says he doesn't explain a damn thing. He asks what he wants to kill him. He says he doesn't. The man says he hates disasters. Tao-san remains silent. He says, damn. Then he suddenly kicks the man in the black cloak, who suddenly grabs Dao-san by the shoulder. Dao-san says, ooh, as he's lifted by the collar and thrown to the floor. Then, Dao-san receives a powerful kick from the man. The woman asks why he hasn't removed the stake yet. He explains that it's not that he hasn't done it, but that he simply can't until there's another Tao-san nearby. The man asks why. He says that if he knew, he would have already. The man says that if Tao-san hesitates in a fight with an opponent who is ready to kill him, he will never be able to strike back. The man explains that Tao-san is afraid the blood will consume him and cause him to go berserk. He asks what exactly is bothering the guy. The guy replies that he thought he got rid of his fear, but maybe he's right. Dao-san says that you can't grow up without understanding yourself. He explains that he was the one who stopped the boy last time and asks if he's unconsciously setting limits for himself and convinced himself that he can't stop without him. Dao-san advises getting used to using your blood and trusting yourself, and he says that right now it's just him and the other guy and there's no better time to gain combat experience. The man explains that a good blow to the neck will be enough to kill and suggests moving on to the point where you can break the opponent's neck, human or not. He says that he's a disaster, and the man, Dao-san, kicks a man in a black cloak. The man says that this blood, this power, is a gift given only to Alma. Alma reacts with surprise. The man warns Alma not to let the disaster corrupt his heart, but says he cannot change the fact that he is a disaster, although he can change his life. The man says that Dao-san must learn to control his blood without relying on the karmic stake of restraint. Dao-san declares that he will not allow the blood to control him and will control it himself. The man explains that once this happens, Dao-san will be able to remove the stake. He says that's fine and that he understands. The man says that he disagrees. He says that then we'll start the third round. The man remains silent. Dao-san reports that he has some free time, as Yoki ordered him to be ready and says that nothing has happened. The girl asks Dao-san what he is doing here and asks if he considers Alma a disaster. Dao-san replies that he does not. The girl is surprised and reminds him. The woman says, and the man remains silent. The man explains that the purpose of this training is to prevent this. The man addresses the woman, calling her petty, and the woman asks him not to call her that. The man asks if the woman knows why he can't remove his stake without Tao. The woman expresses disappointment. Tao-san says, "Ha," then says he thought the girl was on a mission, and says, "Oh." He falls to the floor, and the girl stands over him with a sword in her hand. He makes a sound of surprise. He says that he is guilty and asks for forgiveness. The girl asks if he made her so angry. He makes a sound of pain. The girl says Dao-san is making fun of her. Dao-san asks what's wrong. The girl explains that when she returned to base, she was told to wait, but sitting around doing nothing isn't good enough for her, so she decided to take it out on Dao-san. She picks up her sword. He says there's a change of plans. He announces that he's going to fight her now. He tells the old man, and the man asks what about his training. He exclaims in surprise. The woman says she couldn't believe that this was the reason Dao needed permission, and says she won't rest until she gets him to overcome it. The man says that, as before, he will allow Nei to hunt him. The girl explains that they will continue until the boy removes the stake or dies. Dao-san says they wouldn't be doing this if he could just pull it out, adding that the guy has grown bangs. The guy responds with a question. The girl strikes, and the guy exclaims in surprise. Dao-san says it was close, and the guy expresses surprise. He says there will be no mercy, even for someone younger, and makes a noise. The girl explains that of course not, she likes being praised, but she can't stand being mocked. The girl says she'll make him understand that she's better than Dao-san. The woman says that Tao-san should forget about training and that he needs to cool down, to which Tao-san replies that she should shut up. Tao-san says that he will do it to her with his bare hands. The woman notices something and strikes, knocking Tao-san back, landing on the floor. He tries to grab the sword, but the girl with the sword tells him he can't take it. He fights off the girl's blow, who explains that he can't win unless he learns to defend himself. He makes a sound of pain. The man says he's afraid that if he loses it now, he'll kill him. The woman says he's driving her crazy. The man explains that he's assuring her. The woman tells the man that his fears are unfounded. The man raises a stick, and the woman strikes him down with a sword. The woman says that's not enough, and asks if he still hasn't figured it out. Dao-san makes a pained sound and tries to grab the sword. He says it hurts so much. Then he explains that what the hell does groundless even mean? The man in the last frames makes a sound of pain. He falls to his knees in the last frames. The woman explains that this means he won't be able to kill her. Tao-san holds back the sword's blow with all his might, making a sound of effort. In the next panel, Tao-san deflects an opponent's attack, which comes from above. The woman asks what they're doing here, and he explains that this is one of his offices and invites them to follow him. In the office, he apologizes for the mess and says that girls don't usually come here. A man says hello, another man says hello in the evening, and a third man says good afternoon. Then Tao-san says that's all they have. He announces that it's time to get to work. The man sighs. The guy yells, "Come on," and abruptly crashes into a column, surprising the man sitting next to him. The guy falls to the floor. The man yells, "Hey, Adam!" and another man grabs the guy by the clothes. The girl says that he is really going to die now and asks why he can't take this thing out, accusing him of trying to make her a murderer. The girl says that if Tao San could, he would have pulled him out already, calling him a spineless coward. Tao San replies that he can only shake the air. He tells her to shut the hell up and screams, "Yes, sissus." The man says that he has a tender heart and no one like Tao San will understand that. The girl asks if that's what she's talking about. He explains that he doesn't understand and says that the man doesn't understand their feelings, and also, Tao San says that he is of course a coward, and how. He says okay, and the girl tells him that he is a tactless coward and that he never thought about Dao's feelings. He responds by shouting "Shavu" and then expresses surprise. Tao San says she could have killed him, like any other disaster, but she didn't. He explains that Tao saved him because she believed in him, and explains that he never questioned why she spared him 2 years ago. The man says that Yoki and the others, even Ryu, though he says he doesn't care, believe in him and don't want him to get involved. The girl says that everyone is worried about his lack of faith in himself, and if he can't trust them, they won't be able to fight together, so he shouldn't become that person. The girl says she doesn't care if he kills her, because she'll kill him right then and there, and orders him to be pulled out quickly. The man listens silently. The girl says he's something special. Tao San says he feels like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders. The man says that if he dies, his body will burn to ashes, and no one will be able to find his remains. He explains that he is not afraid of death and is ready to fight to the end. The girl says she will not let him die and will fight alongside him. Tao San says he's not afraid and asks who is called a spineless coward. The girl explains that there's no one better in the whole world than her and asks him not to call her a child, and the man agrees that this is a confession. Tao San says he now understands the girl a little better. The man says that he says 3 minutes is easy, he can do longer, and explains that you just need to focus on gaining experience in a real fight. He says yes, yes. The man advises you to fight, and you'll understand everything yourself. He challenges you to fight again before you lose. Tao San runs toward the girl. The girl raises her sword and strikes Tao San, knocking him down. The girl is surprised and says she hasn't even done anything yet. The man suggests Ryu call Miss Kisabe. Ryu stands silently next to the fallen Tao S. A man says he has anemia. He says, "Oh." He points and says, "Wait, there's a man there who matches the description." The man with glasses asks if he really matches the description. He and the man with glasses confirm that he looks exactly the same, and he says, "Hold him." The husband. Tao San says, "Girls," the woman replies. "Oh," another woman says, "No, no, no." The man asks, "What? He didn't touch any of them just now, right?" Tao San says, "Oh my God, we've got another secret." He says they're going to dance, and the man asks what exactly. The man explains that it's not certain and says he didn't hang them, and the other man adds that he fed them something. He denies it. The man asks if he can kill someone close to him. The nurse reports that Mr. Alma has woken up and is addressing Mr. Sino. Tao San makes a sound. Tao San asks what he's doing there, to which the man explains that he lost too much blood and fell face first onto the floor, which happens when his entire body is covered in cuts. He says that since he's already woken up, he needs to have some food and then go back to the gym and continue training. He agrees. Tao San stands in silence. The man explains that he can't just start moving right after eating because of his age. The man asks how long Tao San was going to keep him waiting and calls him a turtle. The man says that we can begin. Tao San says that he thought that the interlocutor was slow, but he is still eager to fight and offers to go. The man says, "Okay, get set, get going." He stands with a gun in his hand in front of the man. The man calls for marching. Tao San jumps to the side, breaking the wall. The man strikes. He strikes with a sword. The man dodges and does a somersault. The man falls to the floor, after which he rushes to attack with a weapon. Tao San says he has no intention of giving up and explains that his strength is only growing. The man says he won't let Tao San win and intends to stop him at any cost. He kicks the man in the face. The man tries to parry, but gets hit in the arm and retreats. He suddenly lunges forward and grabs the man by the shoulder. The man reports that the boy didn't even last 30 seconds, and again suggests moving, explaining that this doesn't bode well. Tao San says it feels like 3 minutes have passed and exclaims in surprise. The man again says it's only been 30 seconds. Tao S. He says he's ordering pork ramen, fried rice, and gyoza, as well as pork chops, chicken karaage, twice cooked pork, shao mai, sweet and sour pork, and pork liver with fried garlic and onions. Tao San says she'll have fried rice and gyoza, and the guy replies, "Oh." The guy asks where Tao San is, and Tao San explains that she left early and is going home. If she's not at the main base, then she must be at the office. The guy agrees. The sentence is incomplete and likely a mistranslation. A woman reports that if someone close to her were to fall into distress, she says she thinks she would kill them. Dao-san says that if the only way to save them is by dying, he will do it. The woman is silent. Dao-san asks if she appreciates him. The woman addresses Dao-san, calling him darling, and begins to speak. He says you need to think about this with a cool head, and the man advises trying not to dwell on it too much. The man explains that he can't describe the face in detail since 9 years have passed. Tao-san says he doesn't believe in gods, to which the boy replies, "Of course not." A man with a cigarette stands silently at the temple gate. In the lower panel, two people lie together, the man embracing the woman. He says that this is a place where one can meet death, and explains that here, one can see how people who could not cope with life leave this world. The man speaks to Jin. The man looks down. Dao-san smokes and looks forward. He says, "Welcome back, sister." The woman says she can't believe it. Dao-san says he's not going to give up. The man explains he came here to meet someone. The woman says she's been waiting for this moment for a long time. He says he's not going to kill. The woman with the gun says she wants to know who he is. The woman says don't move. The man asks to trust him and just remember. Tao-san says watch. The woman says that with her next shot she'll blow off the man's head, scar included. The man asks who he is and explains that playing with the feelings of someone who is so attached to his younger brother is extremely dangerous. He explains that he is not a genie and reveals that on the same day he received the scar, he was given the name Yoru. The man says that from now on, that's what he's supposed to be called, and warns him not to mess around with him. The guy asks who he is and who gave him that name. The man asks what the guy did to Jin and where he is. The man says the guy already knows the truth and demands he confess. Tao-san reports that Jin is dead, and the woman says that it is all his fault. The image does not contain speech bubbles or text that conveys dialogue or monologue. In the top right, a girl says it looks like he'll be taking his anger out on her from now on. Next to him, a guy thinks he hasn't shed a tear over the loss of his mother. In the bottom right, a girl asks if he hit her today and receives an affirmative answer, then hopes it will be the same tomorrow. Tao-san says everything is fine. Jin doesn't need to worry about anything. His big sister will protect him, and someday they'll definitely get out of here and live freely. The man says nothing foreshadowed this day. The man tells her that the girl is already 15 years old. He says that she can take her back and forgive his debts. The man explains that this bastard deprived the children of a mother, and now he's taking his own daughter's money, spending it on drugs and alcohol, and yet he still dares to call himself a father. Cao-san says that money, cigarettes, and pills are drugs, but candy is not. He asks Jin if he's hot and advises him to wear something with short sleeves. Jin says he's fine as is and not hot. Jin suddenly grabs Tao-san's hand and he exclaims. Jin asks since when this has been happening. The man says he just needs to save up a little more, but the other guy demands money. The man yells at the girl to hide the money, explaining that she was supposed to use it to pay off her debts. The girl says she has no idea what he's talking about and orders the man to learn how to deal with his own problems. Tao-san screams for everyone to get lost or he'll kill them. The man calls Tao-san Jin. Jin tells him that if demons exist in this world, he was probably one of them, and it never occurred to him that he was the same kind of person as them. The boy says his hands are shaking and turns to his sister. The woman says, okay, and that she took the money, but asks not to touch Jin. The woman apologizes to Jin and reminds him that she promised not to let anyone hurt him. A guy asks if he can sleep with the girl, and she agrees. The girl says she promises to get some money soon and asks if the guy wants to get out of here already. Then the guy takes off his jacket and hides a gun behind his back. Tao-san tells his sister happy birthday and offers to finish the rest, adding that nothing would make him happier than the thought of her being full. His sister thanks him and replies that he can tell by his eyes that he wants it himself. The man tells Jin he can see it in her eyes. Jin is published. The guy says he's afraid he'll end up like his mother one day. The man says he wishes the guy would stay home more often, just like he used to, instead of working hard to earn money. The guy explains that he has to do this, otherwise they'll never get out of here. The man says that's not how things are done, and that simply asking politely to leave isn't enough. He explains that Tao-san is much more useful than his dear father, and advises him to think it over again for his own good. Tao-san explains that a little thought was enough to give a precise answer, but he admits. The man says he just needed to get home quickly. The man says the woman is actually crazy or something. The man asks what the hell she's doing. The woman says she can't live like this anymore and wants to die. She opens the door and enters the room, then grabs the doorknob. The man lies unconscious on the floor. The man says this place is his home and explains that he's been living here for several months, despite the mess and dirt. He says he feels safe here and can be himself. The woman says it would be unfortunate if the person they've been looking for so long turns out to be a disaster. adding that it seems Dao-san hasn't given it much thought. Dao-san smiles, clasping his hands together. The woman tells Jin that he's gone. Jin smiles and places something in the man's hand. The man looks on. The caption says they'll literally go through hell unless they're killed. The girl screams, stretching her arms forward. The woman says he's a bastard and asks what he's doing with Dao-san. The boy says he can't let Dao-san die because he needs him. Dao-san says he's not going to give up. The man with glasses explains he can't let Dao-san go. He delivers a powerful kick to the man, hitting him in the face and knocking him down. He then looks forward and continues attacking the man, who falls to the ground. The woman screams, "Alma!" Tao-san reacts with surprise. Then there's a loud thud on the ground. He says, "You." The man says that he cannot die because he has a dream. Tao-san says he's the lost guy and explains he's gathered all the information, asking who they think he is. The man says Tao-san is somehow different and explains that the information is worth 1,000,000 yen and will bill you later. The man also says the Tao-san. He says this is the guy that dear Tao has been looking for the last 9 or so years. He explains that, in fact, this is the gallows killer. The guy says he remembers being told about him, and it seems like he's seen this man somewhere before. Dao-san says the man was a hangman murderer all along. The man explains that the woman turned out to be a cruel sister who turned her back on him and took in a stranger. The man laughs and says it's funny. The guy tells her he's her younger brother. He says she either couldn't or didn't want to talk about it because it was her fault. Her younger brother died. The guy is surprised and says she never told anyone about her younger brother. A man says it would be fun if he lets them meet someone. The guy is silent, and the other guy says, "Oh." The man asks what's wrong. Tao-san says he did something again. He's that guy, he says. The woman calls Jin by name. He says he can't believe what's happening. The man with disheveled hair asks in horror why he's here and what he's doing, and also why he's with her. The guy screams that she told him not to worry and that she would protect him, but it was all a lie, and he asks why this happened. The boy screams in pain. Dao-san says it's a gate. The creature asks if it can eat the boy and is told it can. The creature says it wants to give the boy something to drink. The woman says that there's no need for that now, but asks Sao-san, as he's in a difficult situation. He explains that it was precisely for this moment that they beat the crap out of him. He's no longer dead weight and can fight on his own, even without her permission. The woman asks him to leave it to her and Dao-san. Tao-san says that if he fails to win, he will die, but if he wins, he can return home. The man explains that this is not a game, and if he loses, he will die. Tao-san takes up his weapon and prepares to fight the approaching creatures. He strikes a group of creatures that are trying to get closer to him with his weapon. The monster says something is coming out of his mouth and screams, "Ooh." The man says "ooh" and repeats it twice. The man grabs the monster by the throat. Tao-san punches the creature, sending it flying backward. Tao-san then jumps and kicks the creature. The hooded man throws a flaming bottle at the creature. Tao-san looks at the creatures approaching him with outstretched arms. The boy repeats that it's not his fault. Then he screams in pain as the creature attacks him. The boy asks what's going on. The boy's gaze becomes determined. The creature is surrounded by a group of other creatures. In the top panel, Tao-san delivers a powerful blow, knocking back several opponents. In the bottom panel, Tao-san clutches his hand to his mouth in fear. The guy asks him to stay away and not come closer. The man yells at Jin to stop, and Jin warns him not to approach him. Jin yells at him not to approach him as he runs with a gun in his hands. The man asks what Jin wants, and Jin makes a pained noise. The woman says she doesn't know what happened between them in the past, but he's definitely wrong about one thing. Tao-san says that's his name and he forgot to ask. The man calls Jin and asks why him. Jin is surprised. Tao-san explains that he never lies. The woman asks a question. The man replies that he knows nothing and asks what he understands. He says that he has been looking for this man for the last 9 years and explains that he is not the type to abandon his loved ones, and deep down, he is right. The man shouts at Dao Santo. Tao-san says he can't let another person die, even if they're an enemy. The man says he doesn't intend to die. Tao-san explains he doesn't intend to kill the man. The woman tells him that if he doesn't give in, he will die. He breathes heavily and laughs, and the man screams in pain. He smiles. Tao-san says he was definitely not mistaken about the last part, and that everything the woman said was a lie. He explains that their mother didn't go to God. There were many reasons for worry, and everything was not okay, and she wasn't there to protect him. Tao-san explains that's why he protected Jin and that. He says that everything that happened was the fault of another person, but thanks him because otherwise he wouldn't have met Yomi. The man with the gun looks at Tao-san, and the guy in the hoodie reacts with surprise. Tao-san says he must admit, he's never been happier since the day he died. He explains he's gotten everything he wanted, shelter and a family to share meals with. The boy says he'll continue killing people for Yomi. The woman says that even if Tao-san dies, the guy says they'll see each other again and says, well, there's a package with a note below, followed by a note about continuing. The woman says hello and welcomes Yoru home. Dao-san informs him that he's home. The man asks why Dao-san is so cheerful and what happened. Dao-san explains that he's been waiting for the moment to see a special expression on a certain person's face, and it finally happened. The top right guy says that next time he will definitely kill her. He announces that he will begin interrogation. The man asks Tao-san if the genie is really his younger brother. Tao-san confirms and says that he has apparently become a disaster. Tao-san remains silent. Tao-san asks why he was only told about all this now. He says yes, and then tells her that she ran away from home a long time ago and left him there, while feeding him lies to calm him down. He adds that she doesn't remember ever leaving him. Tao-san says the man isn't sharing enough about himself and wants to be relied upon more. The woman says she knows a lot about him now but has no idea what he was like before, adding that he's become more assertive. The man explains that he still turns to Tao-san. He says that she has already decided everything, and now that he has become a disaster, there is only one way to save him. At the next meeting, she will kill him in the personality of Yoru. He explains that the strange guy he saw on the way from Atari was Jin, and he was wondering why he was acting so strangely. The woman says the area is plagued by problems, explaining that you'll encounter bandits, scammers, and people who just want to take advantage of others. Tao-san says that despite this, you can also find good people here, explaining that he grew up in the area and knows it better than anyone. He says he understands everything now, and that what happened to his younger brother weighs heavily on him. The man explains that he doesn't open up to them at all and never complains, so he should rely on them more. The woman says they're not strangers. Tao-san says he's glad the other one is okay and that he shouldn't have rushed into danger alone, and if something had happened to him, he would have killed that goat. The man asks him to wait and says that while he's gone, he needs to get down to business, which he intends to do. Tao-san. He reports that he's gotten new information, adding that it's, as always, horribly gory. The woman notes that there's no baby food on the menu today. The man invites everyone to sit down. The woman says he said he'd be busy at work today because his debt has crossed 1 million or something, and Tao-san says, oh. Tao-san explains that the only thing more difficult to deal with than this guy's bills is street safety, and suggests they get down to business. The man asks. He reports that 3 types of disfigured corpses have been surfacing more and more frequently lately, and neither an ordinary person nor a disaster could easily pull off any of this, and the principle is the same as that of the Yomi or hanging killer, the Jin. He explains that this means that according to Gok, Tao-san says there aren't many people today, so they can handle it themselves. Alma says that's great, and it's time to make some easy money. Alma explains that the dish is for Mr. Maki, a regular customer, and reminds Tao-san that he's been there a couple of times already. Tao-san confirms. He greets the Baolai restaurant. The man says he's coming. He greets the man asks how things are. The guy says that's a bummer and asks Alma what's wrong, then explains that he was hoping his nice food would be here. Alma says not to make them deliver the food and then complain about it. The guy is surprised and repeats about the nice food. Then the guy and Alma discuss what. Tao-san says he's experiencing the same thing now. The man explains that the girl is a bit demanding, but also incredibly beautiful, and suggests imagining that such a girl invaded him like an angel descending from heaven. The guy asks Maka if he'll be there soon, to which Maka apologizes and says he'll be right there. Maka explains that his girlfriend will be jealous if other girls come, and is counting on Alma's help, even though it's unpleasant. The guy notices that Maka is over the moon. Tao-san reports that the threat isn't out of the ordinary, but it's quite frightening. He thinks that if they're like Jin, they have some kind of superpower, and without it, it would be impossible to commit all these murders in such a short period of time. He reports that Jin showed no signs of other abilities, although he strangled people and hanged some. He explains that it is unknown whether Jin has other abilities or is only capable of strangulation, and suggests that there is some connection between Jin and his ability. He explains that in the end, the woman explains that, according to theory, the ability of humanoid disasters is linked to the cause of their death. The girl asks if she understands correctly. Tao-san says that this clarifies the situation somewhat, and in that case, those disasters who died from blood loss, starvation, or being crushed. The man says that, as usual, he'll leave all the rough stuff to Tao, and he'll work tirelessly for now. He doesn't know what powers they possess, though, and asks them to try not to do anything that might make him interfere. The woman says it looks like Tao has earned 50. The TV announces that there's a lot of work to do starting tomorrow. so he needs to clean up and go to bed, to which the guy says okay. The girl tells Alma that Mr. Maki wants her to handle the delivery, and Dao-san explains that it's an emergency. He explains that his girlfriend will be jealous if other girls come here. He asks if he can run around without his uniform. The woman replies that he can and orders him to get dressed. He says, uh-huh. The man confirms that he can. The woman says, uh-huh. Tao-san says that today is his anniversary, 1 week and 5 days, and that he has not only enough money, but also enough ingenuity. The man explains that he's a delivery guy for the Baolai restaurant and should give credit to such an unreliable guy as Tao-san, who's going out of his way. Tao. A man screams, asking what's going on. A man asks for help. A man calls Mako baby. A woman asks why a man is running away from Yutsu. Dao-san says he's not crazy. The man explains that she's been crazy since yesterday. Dao-san screams that that's it. The man screams and cries that she's been crazy since yesterday. The girl says that the situation arose because the guy was staring at some girl instead of Utsu. He responds by saying that the girl misunderstood everything. The guy explains that he was watching, but it was just a TV presenter, just a random girl on screen, and says that his #1 cutest girl is Utsuro. Tao-san yells that the guy doesn't understand and accuses him of staring at other girls. The guy. He screams, and the man asks him to stop and wait. He screams time out, trying to hold the girl back with a knife. The man is shocked. He asks the girl if she really wants to do this and kill Maki-san. The girl confirms. The man screams in amazement. The woman tells her that if Mako dies, he will belong to Utsu forever. The man explains that Utsu is constantly looking around, and it worries her. But despite this, Utsu loves Mako very much. The man says it's even worse than he thought and insists that she doesn't. Dao-san says it's all because of intense love, though Mako doesn't get it at all. The man says it's definitely his fault, and the boy yells back, "What's wrong?" Dao-san explains that the boy won't pass up any skirt, and the man adds that when he says that, the first thing that comes to mind is G. He says that she just needs to keep her eyes on her, and then everything will be fine, and also warns her not to attack him right away. The guy agrees. He hands over the book and says that if Maki-san doesn't change her lustful habits, she can contact him anytime, asking. The woman says she's a nice girl. Tao-san says he never thought there was anyone crazier than Nei, and adds, "Oh my god, well well." The woman says that then all he needs to do is break up with her. Tao-san explains that Maki-san's girlfriend almost chopped him into pieces with a kitchen knife. He explains that everything is business as usual here and asks Maki-san why he doesn't just break up with her. Maki-san says that she really will leave him one day, but then starts crying and screaming that they haven't even slept together and that it's all so harsh, pathetic, and creepy. Tao-san says he rarely goes that far with girls and confirms that when he found one he immediately started dreaming. He explains that at first she simply pinched his arm and tells how he had the pleasure of ogling a waitress with incredible breasts, and then the guy says he can't help himself. It's a male instinct, and the man explains that he's had enough of making excuses, which is why girls don't like him, telling him to shut up. The guy says no one would look at a pathetic loser like him and admits he knows it. He tells. Zhao-san says that, in short, it happened like this. He didn't want to make a scene out of it and didn't know how she would react if he started calling for help, so he called him under the pretext of delivering. The woman reports that the lovers are arguing, but the ending of the sentence apparently wasn't about them. He says that he made the girl lose her temper, and she got angry. He calls himself pathetic. He asks Utsuro for forgiveness. He explains that it was Utsuro who lost her cool first and apologizes for it on her behalf. Utsuro says. Tao-san tells him he's hers. The man explains that at one point he thought she'd actually stab him and explains that it simply means her feelings are so strong. Tao-san says that's true and that's how it is. The woman says that this allowed her to understand how much she loves Dao-san and that she will change, will try to do everything so that he does not worry anymore. He begins to say, therefore, but is interrupted by an exclamation of surprise. The woman tells him he's finally hers and then says she's just happy. The man notices the blood and calls her baby. The guy says something incomprehensible. The girl kisses the guy on the lips. The girl tells him that she loves Mac very much and that he is now hers forever. Dao-san says it's strange. The girl asks what's wrong. Dao-san explains that Maki-san hasn't ordered anything since that day and, given his behavior, was sure he'd call in 2 days. He says it's just a small change this time and thanks for the food. The man says Maki-san has been up to no good again. Maki says hello and is surprised. He offers to come up to their office and Maki sheepishly replies, "Well, anyway." Dao-san says they only have oolong tea and asks if that's okay, to which the girl replies yes. The girl explains that she came without calling, which is probably inconvenient, and says she's not very good at small talk, so she'll get straight to the point. Dao-san says that. He asks the girl if Utsu likes her or if she hates her. The girl replies that she doesn't. He's surprised and says that Utsu thought so too, and then asks if she came to talk about Maki-san. Tao-san explains that once Utsu gets like this, there's no stopping her until she gets the guy's full attention. The guy apologizes and says that because Tao-san has talked so much, he can't keep up. Tao-san reveals that Utsu has fallen in love with the guy. He says he doesn't understand. The woman says he should have understood. He falls to the floor with another man. The woman smokes and looks at them. The woman tells him to be kinder and clean up afterward. Tao-san tells him to leave him alone and asks what's gotten into him. The woman asks who he is. He reacts with surprise to the girl's question, who also asks who he is. The woman tells him not to answer the question with a question and asks who he is to her. He asks him to wait. The man says he's waiting for an explanation from Tao-san, who explains that the girl he calls Ki-san is related to him. Tao-san explains that her name is Al and that it's a cool name. He asks if he can call her that or if he should call her by her last name, to which the girl objects, asking to be called. In the top right, he says, there's no need to worry, they can learn everything about each other starting today. Below, the man asks that if this isn't some kind of joke, then leave. In the top left, the guy yells that he doesn't understand the point and that he doesn't know Dao-s. The woman says Dao-san is a fan of older women with large breasts and no other assets, and Dao-san is indignant and asks what the hell he's talking about. The woman explains that the gifts are a weapon for the destruction of the male race and that the gifts almost killed her with their tricks and the man. He says the girl has Maki-san and asks if she wants to spite him like that. The girl says she likes him now. He asks if they really broke up, to which the girl replies that it doesn't matter, and he says that it certainly does. The woman explains that love also shines brightest when it overcomes obstacles, and even if there are many other women around and he hasn't noticed one yet, if he ultimately chooses her, then the man says that girls love that kind of thing and confirms that she mentioned it. Tao-san asks the official. The woman runs away, and the man shouts at her, asking what's wrong again and asking her to wait. The man with glasses says he doesn't understand what's going on. The woman greets him and the girl invites him in. The woman asks the girl if her name is Yaya and offers to help. The woman is curious. Tao-san shouts that the auntie will beat the crap out of him. The man is shocked, saying that Alma said he liked flat-chested girls and is surprised, meaning he likes this girl more than Utsu. Tao-san protests that he never said that. The girl accuses. He says Uza can only ask for forgiveness and asks her to stop crying. Uza explains that she has to cut herself. He asks what kind of person and accuses Uza of being crazy, asking if Alma is tired of her and saying that it would be better if she died. Tao-san explains that when he does this, everyone immediately notices him, just like now. The guy says he feels like he's going crazy just talking to Tao-san. Tao-san explains that all the guy can think about is him and asks if the guy likes him. The woman says no one has ever said they hate her and that she's falling in love even more deeply. She adds that love shines brighter when there are obstacles in its path. The man asks her to say this more often. He explains that he can't hold the woman in his arms, and she demands not to. Tao-san says that Utsu is not an alien and is the same as Alma, and the girl says that apparently they are talking about jokes. He says that when he returns with bandages, the man should go home because there's nothing to do here. The girl explains that she wants him to go on a date with her. He asks what the hell and what else. The girl says what else just this once, and she immediately. Tao-san shouts that they've been kicked out and says he'll wait for Alma until she works, eats, sleeps, goes to the bathroom, takes a bath, and doesn't die, but she must stay home until dinner. The woman on the phone explains that they haven't found out anything yet and says it's been less than. He says he's doing so well that he ran off somewhere, leaving the office in complete disarray. He explains that he's still at that age where he wants to rebel and he's actually doing well. He says that sounds great, then he notices his stained jacket. The woman says she should pay him since she's doing this, and the man thanks her and looks surprised. The woman yells at Tao, demanding he listen to her, and is indignant at the man for not giving his boy a proper upbringing. The man advises him to refrain. Tao-san says he's quite the cutie and offers to see where Maki-san lives. The girl says it's fine if he says she's cute. The man asks Maki-san for her address, explaining that he wants it anyway. Tao-san explains that he never. The woman reports that there haven't been any murders in the area for a long time and explains that this location is the victim's apartment. She explains that the body was found in the hallway and then shows the man lying on the floor that he is dead. The man is unconscious or dead, with blood on his face and body. The woman. Dao-san says the dress fits perfectly and offers to buy it. Dao-san explains that she's prepared a lot of delicious food and invites the guy to try it. The guy declines, saying he's not hungry. He says it's not a toy, but a talisman that brings good luck. The girl explains that the talisman must be protected and not lost. He informs them that now they have a chance to win. Tao-san says the girl will now behave well and go home, and asks her not to, as she promised. The girl says she doesn't want to. Tao-san speaks reproachfully, reminding her of her promise. He says he wants the other person to love Utsu too, and that things can't end like this. He says he already told her that nothing will happen between them, and notes that the other person is strong. He says they ate together, played, and looked at the city at night. The woman says that she can't stand the pain anymore and asks Tao-san to help her, and Tao-san says that he will do everything to ease her suffering. The woman says it's Alma's fault he didn't fall in love with Utsu and asks him to forgive her. She explains that Utsu had her eye on him and thought she'd be killed if she followed him, but Utsu also loves Alma and doesn't want anyone to take him away from her. Tao-san says that Sue will finish the man herself because she doesn't care if she is killed, and explains that this will happen as long as she can get the man, Alma, to the last piece. The image contains no speech bubbles or text to convey the character's words. It depicts a moment of battle or confrontation, with him at the center, surrounded by several defeated men. The text states that the action takes place in the Gokuraku region, and the chapter is titled Death Encore. The woman says she doesn't intend to kill, but just wants to talk. Tao-san says he's not going to give up and is ready to fight. The man with the knife explains he doesn't want to hurt her, but he has to defend himself. He says that if he can't stop the bleeding, he will die, and explains that it's not just a wound, but a curse. The man says that the curse is spreading throughout his body and that he urgently needs to find a way to stop it. He explains that the curse is moving very quickly and that he doesn't know. A woman punches a man hard in the face, causing blood to fly from his mouth. The man claims it was his hands. Tao-san says it's blood. Tao-san asks what's going on. The girl says Tao-san is in the way. Tao-san yells, "Run!" He says that his strength shouldn't be underestimated. He then delivers a powerful kick to the man, who tries to defend himself. The man receives a powerful blow to the stomach and is sent flying backwards. The woman reports that the denouement is getting closer and closer. The woman expresses surprise. The guy reports it's morning. Tao-san explains that Utsu died. The guy, confused, asks who he is and why. The woman says the ring is the same as Yomi-san's. The man with disheveled hair and a fang reacts with surprise. Tao-san tells her that the guy has Utsu, which means he loves only her. Then Tao-san shouts that this is true. He says, "Give it back." The woman says that if she can't win, she will die. The woman explains that she can't allow herself to die because she has a dream. The woman explains that her dream is to become stronger and protect those she cares about. Tao-san says that he hasn't bled like this in a long time and explains that normal wounds heal much faster. He says that means he's a magician. The woman says that Utsu doesn't really like being called that and asks to be called Utsu. A woman stabs her, then a man kicks her in the stomach and grabs her by the waist, lifting her up. The man tells her she won't be able to escape. Tao-san announces that it's over. The man falls to the ground. The man sits down on a bench and says it's over. He says it's sad to beat up a poor girl. He explains that the old Alma would never have done such a thing as he was always on Utsu's side and asks not to worry because Utsu will definitely bring the old Alma back. Tao-san says that first you need to find your brain. Then he explains that by cutting her open, he finally understood how Kanata felt back then. The woman says she has no strength to go on and says she can't stand the pain anymore. The man explains that if she doesn't take the pill, she will die. The woman takes the pill, and the man says she must hold on now. Tao-san says there will be an overdose, but so far everything is fine, and asks for more details. Then he expresses surprise. The woman asks who Kanata is, and warns him not to try to evade her. He says he thinks the other man is a bit selfish. Tao-san says that you shouldn't judge others by yourself by calling the girl crazy. The girl reveals that her name is Utsuro. He asks why it's better to abstain this time. The woman explains that they will be pressed for information about Yomi since he considers them his family. Tao-san says the word family. The woman tells you to keep in mind that if you encounter a mage, you must capture them alive. The final panel depicts a girl extending her hand forward with several phones hovering around her. The guy dodges a multitude of flying wooden fragments. He says that this was his last attack, and now he can't fight anymore. Tao-san declares that he has no intention of giving up and intends to fight to the end. Tao-san explains that if he loses, it will be the end for him. The man strikes Tao-san, but Tao-san manages to dodge and counterattack. He says it only hurts because of a drop of her blood. The man screams in pain. The man fights Tao-san, who strikes him with a sword. The man fights off the attack. Tao-san says he almost got caught and explains that if she cuts him in half, he won't have enough blood to regenerate. He says he's already lost too much blood before pulling out the stake, and even though he managed to enter combat mode, his wounds are healing much slower. He explains that Alma is a different story, as she's a pure blood mage, and simple blood loss means nothing to her. Tao-san says that since Utsu's blood won't cause much harm to his body, he should attack her core. Tao-san explains that immobilizing the mage with the blood that controls him is pointless, as it will kill him immediately if he decides to do so. Tao-san ponders. He's silent, looking down from the edge of the wall. Then he jumps down, breaking the fence, and shouts, "Boy!" Tao-san says what idiot would stand still for something like that and calls his interlocutor a fool. The girl says she can't kill him like that and orders him to stop jumping. He says that if he can't win, he will die, and states that he is not going to give up. Tao-san says that if he can't win, he'll die, and that he has no intention of dying. Tao-san delivers a powerful blow, tearing apart his opponent's weapon. He says that if he falls into the water, he will die, and explains that this is not a joke. He then jumps off the roof, leaving behind marks from his jumps. The water crashes with the falling objects as he falls down, and the man below tries to fight him off. Tao-san kicks, causing an explosion of fire. The man falls into the fountain, and the girl is submerged under the streams of water. Tao-san tells her that now she won't be able to escape, and explains that if she doesn't surrender, she will die. He tells her to just do what Utsu asks, and reminds her that he agreed. Alma screams that she won't tolerate lies and betrayal, threatening to cut that tongue right out of her mouth. He says, "Buzz." The girl says she can't believe it happened and says it's impossible. Then she explains she can't believe it happened to her. Tao-san says his leg isn't healing and asks why it isn't regenerating. The man reports that regeneration isn't working. He says he noticed how the knives that hit the ground later merged together and turned into the girl's braid, while those that fell into the sea dissolved. He explains that the thought flashed through his mind that if he dipped the girl's blood and weapons into the water, it would paralyze her, and Tao-san suddenly grabs a knife and grabs the man's hand, who tries to hit him with an axe, after which they end up on the ground struggling for the weapon. The man expresses surprise. The woman asks him to stop already and begs Tao-san to be hers, explaining that Utsu loves him so much and asking why he won't love her back. He screams that no one will love her when she only thinks about herself. The boy says Alma would never say that and explains that he's been acting strange all this time, even though he and Utsu were supposed to be the perfect couple. The girl yells that she needs to make Utsu happy. The boy says they're asking for the impossible. The woman informs him that he is her subordinate. A man with disheveled hair and a damaged eye looks at her. The woman tells him not to bother him without her permission and asks if the little brat has gotten it. Tao-san says her name. He says that Alma belongs to Utsu and asks how he dares interfere, calling him an old map. The man shouts that he will kill Tao-san and turn him into food for the mages. The woman says that it's more difficult now. Tao-san says he doesn't intend to kill, but simply wants his opponent to understand that he's not worth messing with. Tao-san then delivers a kick, breaking the opponent's bone. In the right panel, the man states that if the girl doesn't surrender, he will kill her. In the left panel, the man explains that he has a gun and is ready to use it. Tao-san informs her that she won't be able to get up and explains that if she falls, she will die. Tao-san explains that if she wants to live, she must get up. Tao-san says that he doesn't intend to kill her. Tao-san informs her that he wants her to live. Tao. The woman says the job is well done and suggests they go home. The man with disheveled hair sits on the ground, and the girl rises, leaning against the wall. The photograph shows a group of 7 people, 3 of whom are standing on the right, 2 on the left, and 2 sitting in the center. Tao-san tells him to be careful. The wounds haven't fully healed yet. Tao-san explains not to overexert himself. Even with his regeneration, the process won't be quick. Tao-san says he understands. Tao-san explains that if it weren't for them, he'd be feeding worms right now, and notes that the family. The woman reports that he's discovered she's also surprised. He says there are other people with the pins, but that means they can't be mass-produced. He explains that these pins can seal a Magi's blood, and Ban says they're made of high hyrocane. Dao-san says he's been daydreaming again and asks if he means it's super rare, to which the other man replies, yes. Dao-san says he'll answer, apologizing that it must be him. The woman asks Ms. Kisabe what she ate today. He says that Orono said to come. He says that he'll have to wait, to which the guy replies with a question. Then he and the guy pass through a metal grate in a long corridor. The man announces that the gentleman is late. Tao-san says he is the great Alma. The man asks Alma-kun to be quiet and not to look scared. Tao-san calls the man a freak and asks why he is wearing a mask and why he is standing by the door. The man invites him in. The man asks about progress, and he says he's powerless. He explains that if he could, he'd cut her into 1,000 pieces, leaving only her brain and heart. But alas, the woman asks if he killed her, and he advises her to give it up. On the bottom right, Tao San says he just calmed her down a bit, and the man next to him says he's come to 3 conclusions anyway. The man on the left agrees the girl said the same thing, and Tao San calls her a psycho, a moron, and a pervert. Left. He explains that she has no desire to run away, although it would be more accurate to say that she has a reason to stay. He informs her that she does not wish to communicate with anyone except her beloved, even under threat of death. The man asks when he managed to do this, to which he replies that he is simply doing his job. The man says that the beloved is Alma-kun, and explains that she said she would only talk to Dao-san and that it had something to do with Yomi. Dao-san says that's why he called them here. The man explains that the main thing is for her to give up the information, and in Sara. He asks what he should ask her. The man says he expected this question and has prepared a sample list. Any convenient methods can be used during interrogation. He reads the list of questions for Utsu and asks if the man is kidding. The man replies that he thinks the list is quite cute. Dao-san tells Alma he's here. Alma says she now has the same thing in her chest as him and suggests they put everything aside for later to talk about the date. Dao-san explains he wanted to talk to her about Yomi, but he can forget about that for now. Alma asks him to tell her. He says it's a shame he started getting mad at the end, and Utsu couldn't stand it and gave in. He tells her that Sumi's target is alive. Utsu explains that while he thinks it wasn't intentional, all couples have fights. He yells at her to shut up. Tao-san says she doesn't love him, and the other guy explains that she doesn't love him, but loves the ideal Alma in her head. Tao-san says that's not true and that she loves him. He tells her to stop daydreaming and to stop imposing her ideals on him. Then he grabs the girl by the face and demands to look at him. The girl coughs. Tao-san says that right now, the real him is standing before him and asks him to remember him like this. The man explains that Utsu is afraid of being ignored, and that once Utsu falls in love with someone, she must make them hers, otherwise everyone disappears and people stop looking. The woman says the guy doesn't look at anyone. He says that if he wants others to look at him, he should look at others first. The woman explains that other people aren't things and will never be what he wants. Tao-san says he loves the girl. The girl remains silent. Tao-san asks if she was planning something on purpose and if she was planning to lie. The girl looks at him. He says it's a pity he didn't have something like his interlocutor before he died. He confirms this with the word yes. The guy reports that now his interlocutor knows this before he dies. The man says he expected her to indulge him, but he went further and gained her trust, and her simplicity also helps. Dao-san says he'll start over and asks about Yomi's goal. He says that every time he infuses his blood into a corpse, it is reborn as a magi. He explains that most of them become freaks and scarecrows, but sometimes they can retain human form, like Utsu. He explains that this is what is called family. Tao-san says it's fine and asks who else is in the family now. The man explains that there's a girl with an eye patch who keeps making mistakes around Yomi-san, a dark-haired guy with bipolar disorder who tried to strangle him, which is why Utsu doesn't like him, and Kashtanka in a pigeon. He says there was also a girl with light blue hair, but she died and that Utsu doesn't know everyone. The woman says A. Down below, the man explains that there was definitely another one. The guy says it's all the other guy's fault and that he suggested coming here. The man screams, trying to say something. The man asks for forgiveness. Tao-san says he shouldn't have opened that room and asks for something. The guy looks scared. A man shouts for someone to leave. The man steps on the hatch, breaks it, and walks down the hallway. Dao-san reports that he did a great job and says hello. The man in the suit explains that they'll call it a day for now, and that Utsuro-san will be under strict surveillance, so Alma can go home today. Dao-san says he's already done his homework and feels like he could. The woman says, "Ah." The man with the eye patch asks Tao-san if he's going to respond to the girl's confession. He says it's fine. The woman explains that even if Alma doesn't pay any attention to Utsu, he'll simply be content with his feelings for him. Tao-san says he'll be back, turning to Utsuro, who says, okay. A man with short hair and a jacket says he shouldn't have treated her like that, and Tao-san and another man with short hair and a jacket with a pattern on the back argue. The man says he'll be outside and asks him to take care of the things he left behind. He says they'll go get some drinks afterward. The man in the helmet thanks Tao-san for the treat and calls him highly respected, and he asks him to be quiet. The man in. The guy says that if a lot of money leads to such an end, he's out. He asks if they'll be cursed after the mansion is torn down and a high-rise is built. The man says that they should stop talking nonsense, otherwise they'll just bring on more. The man starts to say something, but the guy suddenly flinches. The girl explains that A man announces that 2 of his men are dead. Dao-san says it sucks, and the woman explains that it's condolences or something. The man shouts that people are dead and asks how anyone can treat it like that, accusing Tao-san of indifference. He explains that he was woken up early in the morning, but he still listened and asks to have a proper breakfast. The man reports that the woman says the old man is getting on her nerves and asks if he's here to lecture her. The man says Tao-san is very irritable when woken up and asks her to be grateful she's even listening to him now, and Tao-san says, well, the man explains that. The boy reports that their deaths didn't look like accidents or murder, and the way they died seems too strange. The man asks how they died. He says it's possible they starved to death or were crushed. The man says they were crushed. He didn't see anything that could have fallen on them, but it felt like something was pinning them both down. The woman asks how he knew, and the man explains it's a company secret. The man says he only came here on recommendation. The woman says the name Isato, and the man repeats it. The man explains that the mansion was abandoned and developed a spooky reputation, eventually becoming a popular spot for young people to test their courage. He explains that the murder weapon wasn't found at the time, so it wasn't called a murder, and the incident was quickly classified as an accident. Tao-san says he'll feel terrible in front of the boys if he doesn't get to the bottom of it, and that he's cared about them since they were 18. The man explains that if the only thing he can say is an apology for them dying under his nose, then he'll never. The man informs them that the request has been accepted and concerns solving the case of mysterious deaths as well as a reward. He says they are very grateful. The woman explains that this will suffice. The man says it's too cheap and asks her to wait. The woman says the man's sincerity is enough. The man explains that the woman has a family who needs the money more. Dao-san says it's a truly enormous house. He thinks thousands of such houses wouldn't be able to support hundreds of millions and wonders how many tens of thousands would be needed to live like that. Then Dao-san notices someone and says, well, that's... The guy asks what they're doing here and turns to a girl named Alma, wondering what happened to her. The girl is surprised and tells the guy to explain better why he's here and trying to take their jobs. The man in glasses asks what job they're talking about. The woman asks if the girl has any business. The girl says it's her house. The man tries to say something. The man is surprised that the girl has been a millionaire all this time, and the woman asks him not to make a big deal out of it. The girl screams at them to stop calling her a brat. The girl explains that she's more. Tao-san says it's hard to get through the tape, clarifying that he means the tape specifically. The girl replies that's not the point. The girl says she's scared and asks to be let in. He says he only just realized the person he's talking to is that same child, and asks her not to call him a child anymore. The man asks why there's barrier tape there. He says, okay, let's go, the girl exclaims, expressing surprise. Tao-san reports that when the info cheapskate was questioned, he confirmed that there were others who died in this house, and that they suspect a mage who died from reproduction. The girl says that can't be. The woman says she will go with them, and he says it decisively. Tao-san says the girl was so scared she checked it out herself. The girl tells him who she thinks Tao-san is talking to. The man explains that he'll probably wet his pants first. He apologizes for coming in. The woman remarks that the gate is so brave from the outside, and inside he grabs her sleeve, to which he tells her to shut up. The woman explains that they should split up, and if anyone finds anything, they should shout. Tao-san yells that he's starting to get tense too, and asks him to relax. The girl says she can't because they're literally walking through a haunted house, and offers to tell him something to lighten the mood. He says he can tell you how he slipped in a public bathhouse with his dick hanging out, and says he doesn't know what to do with the girl. But she calls him disgusting and is indignant that he tells the punchline at the very beginning. He and the girl react with surprise to the appearance. The man says burglary is a crime and asks why someone else is in charge of everything here. The second man explains that no one has used the homeless man's things for 10 years and suggests leaving him alone. The first man is indignant and asks what other problems there are. Why is he on the homeless man's side? Tao-san says he doesn't understand what's going on. He and the girl approach the man lying on the floor. Tao-san takes something small out of his pocket. He tells them to find him, and the girl asks what he's talking about. The man says that the bastard has finally shown up. A woman says it's a photo of her mother, who died when she was little. The woman explains that her mother was always kind and caring. The woman smokes and looks at the photo. The woman notices something and reacts to a sound. The woman reports that the door is locked and there is no key. The man explains that the door won't open even if it is forced. Then 2 monstrous creatures with open mouths appear from behind the door. A woman shoots a fallen man who is trying to get up. The woman says he won't be able to get out. Tao-san reports that there's no way out of this place and explains that they're trapped. The girl explains that the walls are starting to close in and warns them to act quickly. The girl says she'll help. He grabs the sword and delivers a powerful blow to the monster. The girl reacts with surprise. Dao San says he'll take care of the first floor and asks if the man will get lost in his house, ordering him to run to the second floor. The girl says she understands. A girl climbs the stairs with a flashlight in her hand. A man takes a step forward, standing with a gun, and encounters two ghostly creatures. The woman says there's no one in the room and warns that if anyone tries to enter, she'll open fire. Then the woman says the situation is dire. The man says he hopes he won't be billed. Dao San expresses surprise. The girl shouts at Tao San that he shouldn't demolish the house prematurely. Then the girl looks forward with a serious expression. The man stands on the stairs and watches what's happening. The girl reports that someone was here. She goes to the door and opens it. Tao San strikes with his sword. Tao San attacks several creatures surrounding him. He dodges the blow, then grabs his opponent's hand and says, "Hop." Tao San says, "Bitch," and asks how many there are. He then says, "Hop," as he fights off his attackers. After that, he notices something as rocks fall on him, and the scene ends with the ceiling collapsing. Tao says, "I am." The man says he's fine, but there are a lot of mages. He cut one down, and two crawled out. Tao asks how things are going. The man replies he's no better. The passage there is blocked. Tao San says he thought Nei followed him and asks where she is. The woman says she didn't have her. The girl approaches the door and tries to open it. The woman reports that the door has opened. The man says they could have done it later. The woman and man stand with their backs to each other, the man looking out the window. The girl says that he is. He is. The man says that she is thinking about the wrong thing. The man says he didn't think it was possible to forget the killer who slaughtered her entire family in 10 years, and asks if she has forgotten that. The girl watches silently, her eyes wide open and beads of sweat on her face. The man clutches the object in his hand and then squeezes it sharply. The girl says to shut up. The girl says she won't forgive a scumbag like him. Dao San says he's ready with the will because it will come in handy. The man explains that the girl has perked up and encourages her to move forward, calling her Miss Snot. The man says this place is his home and he won't allow anyone to enter. The girl explains that she came here to take what belongs to her. A woman announces that she must kill him. In the lower right, a man waters the plants while a girl watches him. In the lower center, a cook feeds a girl with a spoon. In the lower left, a woman and a girl eat together at the table. The man says he will do it at any cost. The man says that here and now. The girl says that this was the last attack. The man explains that they can now move on. The girl declares that she cannot afford to lose and explains that if she loses, she will die. She then turns sharply and strikes with her sword, after which she falls to her knees, looking up at an object hanging from the ceiling. The girl lifts two heavy objects over her head and throws them down, causing a powerful impact on the floor. She then notices a deep crack in the floor and looks at it in surprise. Tao San asks who gave you permission to break other people's property. Then rocks and furniture fall from the ceiling, and the man falls onto the table. Below, a man and a girl are sitting at the table, the man explaining something to the girl. The girl asks why. He looks at the debris falling from the ceiling. The girl lifts the bed along with the mattress and blanket. On the bed, the woman explains to the girl that she will always be there and will never leave her alone. The girl pushes herself off the floor, dodging the approaching dark whirlwind. She stares at it tensely, and then the whirlwind violently destroys the room, knocking over furniture and books. Dao San says he can't afford to lose, and swings his sword hard, scattering books. The girl breathes heavily and says she's tired. She kneels and says she can't take it anymore. Her hand bursts into flames. The man announces that he is burning everything that remains of the girl, and explains that now she can no longer cause harm. The girl looks at him silently, kneeling among scattered books. The guy says he can't believe it. The girl says she can't die because she wants to live. The guy explains he's not going to let her live. The man says the situation he expected has happened again, and that he should have ended it back then. The girl reacts with surprise. The man explains that he thought she would kill him, but it seems he overestimated her. The man says that first he needs to get his family back at any cost. The man shouts that he wants his family back. The girl says that if she can't fight off the attack, she will die. She explains that in that case, no one will be able to stop Tao San. A woman holds a katana. A man tells her that in her current state, she can't defeat him. The woman tells her that this is the end and warns that if she doesn't stop, she will die. The woman explains that if she dies, she won't be able to see Dao San. Tao San reports that the mages. The man says it's his blood. The man says that she has always attracted magic because it tastes better than that of an ordinary person. The woman tells him to get up and that she must kill him. She explains that it's hard to breathe, but even with a broken weapon she can defeat him and must kill him. The man says he can. The woman coughs and screams. The girl says, GRA. The man reports the sounds of impacts and destruction. The girl asks why this was done. The man looks straight ahead and remains silent. The girl says she didn't ask for help and asks why. She explains why her parents were killed. The man remains silent. The man asks why, and Dao-san explains that it is because of the man's father. The man tells her to think as she wants. He says why. The girl asks why he didn't kill her if he hated her so much. The man says he doesn't care. The girl reacts with surprise to the destruction around her. The guy says something. The girl screams, "Stop." The woman asks why she can't walk, since it's her body. She wonders why this is happening. Tao-san shouts, "Ni," at her and kicks the wall. The man says he needs to be killed and says he will never forget it. The woman says she can't live like this anymore and asks for help. The man says he can't help because he has nothing himself. The girl announces that she has arrived. The woman explains that she is busy in the kitchen. The girl quietly approaches the woman. The girl says boo and laughs. The woman yells ow and says you shouldn't scare her like that. The girl says it's a surprise for Shinomiya. The woman asks for forgiveness. The woman asks what happened, and the girl replies that she did. The woman says she's finished with the model and asks her to hold it, and the girl confirms and offers to come over. Tao-san says it's Shinomiya-chan's maid bunny, and the woman confirms that even the birthmark is the same. The girl is delighted and says it's a maid bunny. The woman says the girl has real talent. The girl asks if mom and dad will like it if she does something like that. The girl says she already knew this and was just testing the other person, and the woman claps her hands. The woman announces that she'll now get out chocolate pudding for the host and guest. The girl asks who's having afternoon tea and says she wants some too. The girl says she'll take the tea to her dad, and the woman says, "Oh." The woman yells for him to stop and explains that the owner has banned everyone except Fujita from entering the living room. The man demands he stop messing around and says she knows perfectly well he's the one she threw out. The image contains no speech bubbles or text to convey dialogue or monologue. It shows a building with a fountain in the foreground and a girl standing by the fountain. The name of the district, Gokuraku, is stated in the upper right corner. The girl says she only has light blue eyes and says she wouldn't come here for money. The man explains he hasn't forgotten what they're all like and warns the girl will rot in hell. The girl remains silent. The man says, "Let them go." The man says, "Tsu." The man smokes and looks at the girl. The man stands at the gate and the girl stands opposite him behind the bars. A guy asks a girl if she is sad. The man says he's big and scary and that the girl actually cried when she saw him and asks if Tao-san could be his brother. The girl says that even like that, you can't break someone else's property, that she's seen everything, and adds that smoking is bad. The girl says she's sewing on a heart and says it will make them the most fashionable in Japan. The man says his name is Nei and asks the man's name, then asks why they're silent. The man says he's leaving, and the man asks them to wait because he's almost finished. The girl says he's a bad boy, and that if someone helped him, he should say thank you. The man is silent and takes off his jacket. The man asks if it's Shizuka. Shizuka-chan speaks from the car. The girl reports that he never thanked her. She stands at the gate and watches the car drive away. The girl says he usually stands next to the car and asks if Fujita has forgotten. Tao-san laughs and says he won't kill her, then asks what's going on. The man in the back of the car holds the girl by the mouth. Down below, the girl asks where Fujita is and repeats the question. He says tada and announces that it's time for a photo, asking her to smile. He also apologizes for waking her up. The girl remains silent. Tao-san tells Yami to undress. The man asks Tao-san if he's a pedophile, to which Tao-san replies that clients aren't that stupid. The man says he'll need to cover up the cuts, and Tao-san agrees that'll do. He says they'll sell it and has already found a buyer. The girl replies that it's unlikely. The man says that if they just return it, they'll look for them, and Tao-san says he doesn't care as long as they pay him well. He's all for it, and the man replies that of course they will, because he knows him. The man asks where to start, and another man suggests starting with the torso. The man grabs Tao-san by the clothes and says, "Hey," then asks him what the fuck he's thinking. The girl is crying and watching. The guy says he's selling a little bitch. The man explains that the guy can't understand the mind of a genius. The guy asks what he's doing. The girl asks when Dao-san became so respectable and reminds him that he was accused of pedophilia. Dao-san says that's disgusting. Then there's a sudden movement, after which the girl says, "Ouch," while the guy in the hat and the man look on. The guy says he's a dumb gorilla and asks if Shizuka can start thinking. The man says, "Ah." The guy is silent. The man says he can't trust any of them with her yet and orders them to leave. The man cuts the bandage on another man's hand with a knife. The man says that if Daddy does everything right, The girl will be home tomorrow and says she can have a snack and sleep on the couch. The girl cries. The man sits with the girl on his lap. The guy makes a wah-ah sound. Tao-san makes the same wah-ah sound, and the man makes a wah-ah sound. He says he's not going to save anyone because it's none of his business, and adds that if the girl wants to be saved, she'll have to do it herself. The girl says she doesn't want to be saved. The woman says it's time to go. The man tells the girl to stay here, she'll be picked up soon. The girl says thank you and thanks you for saving her. The man responds briefly. The girl says she doesn't understand what's happening and asks why. The man says the name Nana and asks if she's her mother. The man says he can't let her go. The girl says she's not going to give up. The man says that if he manages to kill her, she will be a good girl. Tao-san looks on in surprise. He says he ate the pudding the other guy left and apologizes for it, asking why he's so scared. The woman with glasses tells her the girl has broken ribs and asks her not to move, adding that Yoki-san and Dara-san will be here soon, the girl says. Tao-san says the katana is definitely broken, and Yoki will fix it, but there's no time to waste, he must kill him. Tao-san starts to say he must kill him, but is interrupted. The boy yells at Tao-san to calm down, explaining that all his bones are broken. Tao-san. He screams that he must kill him and asks for a chance. The woman calls Yoki and demands that he fix her katana. The man reaches out to the woman, who is sitting on the bed, and another man is hugging her. The woman is silent. Tao-san demands to be let go, but the man refuses. The woman explains that Tao-san doesn't understand anything, that this monster killed her family, so she must kill him as soon as possible, and the man agrees. Tao-san says he has to go, but the woman replies that he doesn't. Tao-san. The woman says yes, and then says she can't leave things like that. The woman explains that she will always be there to support. The masked man and Tao-san remain silent. The wolf-headed man and the woman walk together. Tao-san says that he says the girl almost died and asks if he needs to repeat it letter by letter, and also explains that what's the use of her in such a state. The girl screams as if she doesn't know this and tries to say something. The man on the bed is silent, and the woman next to him watches what's happening. The girl says that losing loved ones she says that she does have a family. The man hugs the girl. The others stand nearby. Tao-san says they're different in blood, but it's not blood that makes people close. The girl says this is their home and says they only have sarags left. The woman says he said she has nothing and points to Aoki, who is crying, to which the man confirms he's sobbing like a schoolgirl. He starts to speak but is interrupted. The woman explains she didn't mean it and calls herself a complete fool, turning to Alma. Tao-san says welcome back. Then he asks how things are at home with his parents. The guy announces that Shizuka has already arrived. He says he didn't even say hello and orders the bread slicer to let him pass. The girl explains that Utsuro hasn't returned yet and understands that she's a single woman, but still. The guy waves and calls out Memeko. The woman says he's such a pain by God and is delighted. Tao-san tells him he loves Memeko. The guy asks him not to choke. Tao-san asks, sneeze, is there still any left? To which the guy replies, yes, there is plenty. He says not to eat them yet. The guy replies that he understands. The guy says that at the next family dinner after all this, the man says that the air is terrible wherever he goes now, and it could have a negative impact on Keishin. Keishin agrees. The man asks Keishin not to smoke, to which Keishin confirms he won't. The man says he can go out, and that his doctors and team won't give up on this. The guy remains silent. The man in glasses remains silent and says he's surprised he maintained his composure. Tao-san asks what happened next and clarifies who it was, him or Meiji. The man in the wheelchair says Tao-san would cry if he forgot everything, and the man says they're monitoring the information, but the townspeople aren't that stupid, and they need to do something too. He also says the other man knows who he's talking to. The man explains that he's talking about Mammon. With the Gokuranu district building in the background, Tao-san and a girl are standing by an open window. The chapter is called The Snake Pit. He says he's completely healthy. He's glad to be rid of the nasty stuff. The man says they'll continue monitoring Tao-san's condition today and will be able to continue drawing blood tomorrow. Wolf thanks Allah for the blood, which allowed them to develop a bunch of weapons, and says, chin up. The wolf says they can take whatever they want from the cafeteria, and Tao-san agrees. The man with long hair looks at them. He tells a Japanese children's song. He says that a blue tractor is driving towards them through the fields. He notices someone and mentions it. The dog growls and barks. The dog asks to wait for it. Dao-san says his name is Alma, not Hafka, and says it's as if the other person knows his name. The masked man indignantly demands to be called simply Van. He says something with an expression of surprise. The wolf-headed man shouts something back, after which he calls the man Red-Ass Halfjack. He then announces his approach to medical department Mice 1 and expresses mild surprise. Tao San says he'll stop by. He wonders where all these flowers came from. The nurse informs him that Mr. Bond brought these gifts here. Tao San says he's never done anything like that for him. He says the girl is alive and her life is not in danger. The man asks if she is alive. The girl says she needs to get her emotions and bones in order and also tells her to take calcium for her bones and character, to which Tao San replies, "Okay." Tao San enters the room and says, "Good evening." The woman with flowers says she's glad to see Alma and that she looks well, to which the guy asks why Sugumi-san is alone again today, and Sugumi-san says that the boss said that he will be back tomorrow. The woman offers to take something, asking if the man would like anything. Tao-san notices it's a package from Tsuruya and expresses surprise. The woman explains it was a gift for the boss, but he didn't show up, so it'll be their little secret, confirming it with a yes, yes. He says the order includes tonkotsu, ramen, fried rice, and gyoza, as well as mapo tofu, pepper steak, 8 treasure vegetables, bonbon chicken, charshi rice, and shrimp spring rolls and sauce. Tao San notices a tray of food and is surprised he didn't order it. The waiter informs him it's for him. Tao San explains it's from Mr. Orono, who asked him to thank him for everything. The woman says it's delicious. He asks why him. The man explains that the woman said she wouldn't eat without Tao-san. Tao-san says that in this sense, he and his interlocutor are very similar. The woman explains that there is no love here, and what caregiver doesn't feel love and a desire to care. Tao-san asks why he is her caregiver in the first place. The woman says that he says so, but he carefully feeds her. He says it's a prototype and asks to see it. He explains that they use Alma's blood for both the bullets and the gun itself, and that its effect on mages is simply stunning. The woman shouts at Tao-san to stop, to which he agrees. Tao-san reports that Alma's blood is toxic and dangerous to humans. A simple touch is enough to cause severe poisoning. The man explains that while working with her, they discovered this was one of the problems encountered during the prototype's creation. The man explains that despite this, Utsu is fine, and he says he'll take the plates and asks her to stop asking everyone for things they can't do. The woman agrees. Then the woman asks if he's leaving and says Utsu wanted to talk to him, after which she thinks no one will want to love Tao S. The woman says she realized something for a second and suggests he come see her later, admitting she's so selfish, but still. Tao-san asks if she's changed a little and says he's glad she's on the right path. The woman is surprised. The top right shows a closed door with a shelf in front of it. Bottom right, a girl says that Utsu was a good girl. Bottom left, a man says he could have just said he was good instead of helping, but maybe one day. Top left, a man repeats that he's glad the girl got up. After Tao-san dies one day, he tells about what is happening. The guy says it's a device for measuring punching force. He explains that it records the speed and power of a punch, and also analyzes the trajectory of the punch. The guy says he's here for Utsuro. The woman says he lives here. The woman says yes. The guy says that the place where she should be is not here. The guy tells her that if she doesn't want to die, she should obey him. He explains that he won't hurt her if she behaves. Then the guy throws the dirty rag aside. A woman falls from a chair, bleeding. Tao-san looks at her bloodied hand. Tao-san points to the woman and says that she's making a sound of pain. He reports that Yomi told him that, thanks to his blood, he knows the location of all the family members. The man explains that he doesn't want to starve, so he stayed here, and that Yomi gave him a choice, go without dinner or drag him home. The man says that although Yatora would be better than him, he doesn't. The guy says that you need to go back, or die here. The man tells you to choose. The man says it's an alarm and asks who it is. The man says it's a child. The man presses the button marked danger or alarm. The alarm starts to sound. The guy says he thinks he's been noticed and asks if they can resolve the matter quickly, calling the other guy slow. He then asks the girl to get up. A guy reports that a girl is acting strange. She's breathing heavily and looks exhausted. The guy asks what she's doing. The guard orders everyone to stand still and warns of danger in cell 4-3, requesting backup. The man explains that there's a child in the cell, a gate has appeared, and that the mage, who had lost blood, has regenerated his lost limbs. The guard repeats the order to stand still. The policeman says that if he turns out to be a magician, then damn it he is. The man explains that no matter how you look at it, he's just a child. Just a child. Tao-san says goodbye. 2 men with pistols speak. He reports the kaboom and blows up the grate. Tao-san says he doesn't intend to kill them because he wants them to live and suffer. He explains that he will keep them alive to suffer and says it will last forever. The guy tells Chihaya. Tao-san tells him not to touch those 2, he'll eat them later, and orders him to get rid of her. The man replies that he understands, and the girl reacts with surprise. The guy says he's incredibly lucky. The woman says she doesn't think the guy remembered anything. He explains that they can't kill the redhead and says they should bring him to Yomi, asking if everything is clear. Dao-san says he understands and explains that they should leave the corpses alone, kill everyone and return to Chihaya, and then receive a rain of his praise. The woman says that now. He says something strange is happening and shouts to the outsiders. The man reports danger in cell 4-3, where the blood-lost mages are located and a gate has appeared, but Shida remains silent and Sakai doesn't respond. He notices this and says he'll have to interfere. The woman says she still needs to meet Elma-kun. Tao-san says he doesn't understand the point of apologizing if she's going to die and asks why she's apologizing. A woman says she's in the Gokuraku district. The girl expresses surprise. The woman with the cigarette speaks. The man with the dog is silent. The woman with the eye patch explains something, holding a bandage in her hands. A man reports a danger in cell 4-3, where a boy in a school uniform who has lost his magical blood is being held. Tao-san says something in response. Then there is a sudden surge of energy, startling the man and causing him to scream. The man, the woman, and Tao-san are thrown back. The woman says she acted too late and apologizes. The man says it's okay because she saved him and asks why she took the prototype. The woman explains that she's using it. The masked man asks what's going on and he screams from the impact. The woman says they'll test him at the same time. The man stands with his fists clenched. The woman says it's the Gokuraku district. The woman explains it's chapter 29 titled Soulless. Tao-san says yes, then asks more. He says they'll just destroy everything. The man explains that everything is clear and suggests continuing, then falls silent. He says that Chihaya ordered everyone to be killed and reports that he has already answered the questions. The man clenches his fists and then says, a woman runs with a gun in her hand. Tao-san says he'll start with her. Tao-san says the word kaboom and creates an explosion. The guy says he thinks the enemy is already dead, and he responds by talking about magic tricks and expressing surprise. The guy expresses bewilderment and asks if he's trying to piss him off and what he'll do next. The guy says he has nowhere to hide. The man expresses surprise and says it's for the guy. The guy says hey and says he's annoyed that the girl is still alive. The girl says ugh and explains that the others died immediately after the first explosion. The guy declares that he's not going to give up and will fight to the end. The man notices a crack in the wall and expresses surprise. The guy raises his hand and releases a powerful energy blast towards the man, who is thrown back. The woman says she can't let Dao-san leave because he knows too much. Dao-san kicks the woman and she tries to stab him in return. He says it's useless and delivers a powerful blow, sending the opponent flying into the wall. Tao-san says that he is not dying and asks if the interlocutor is a zombie, and the man says, oh. He says he's been messing around with her for too long and asks how far Chihaya has gone. The girl asks what they're doing, and Zhao-san replies by asking why. In the background, a girl is hitting a man lying on the floor. The girl says no. The man says that tonight will be the last episode of the Monday night drama. Dao-san asks the girl if she eats carrots and then asks permission to eat them. After this, the man screams, wondering what happened. He says that this girl isn't looking at anyone. Then he tells her to look at him with his crazy eyes. He asks, ah, and the girl explains that she hasn't received the Alma yet. He showed it to her, and that she already told him about it. The guy says this is his path. The man explains that he can't seem to close the door, and it's fucking annoying. The man yells, asking who the guy is even talking about. In the top panel, a man receives a strong blow to the face. Below, a man kicks another man. In the left middle panel, a girl sits on the floor, covered in wounds and dirt. In the right middle panel, a man kicks a body that has fallen to the floor. In the bottom large panel, Tao-san stands, looking at the girl sitting on. He says he has red hair. The man asks what he should do and what Chihaya said, and then says that it seems like Yomi-san said something. Tao-san says the connection has been lost. He says it's shit. He kicks the man, who flies back. The man falls to the floor. Tao-san announces that he will strike with such force that the opponent will be unable to stand up, and explains that this will be his final blow. Tao-san then delivers a powerful punch to the opponent's head, followed by an explosive sound. He backflips away from the explosion, and the woman presses herself against the wall. He says he can handle it. He then clears the smoke while standing still. A man fires a gun. The man notices he's been shot in the arm and says, huh? The man continues shooting despite the wound. Tao-san strikes the headband-wearing man, who falls backward, impaled by several metal rods. The headband-wearing man announces that this is the end. The guy with the bandage on his head says he'll ask just one question. He says he'll ask just one question. Tao-san says he's not a mage. The man replies that in rare cases, mages become human-like, like Utsu, and explains that Yomi-san infuses her blood into a corpse, which then turns into a mage, and that's what family is. He asks why the man attacked Utsu and if he's part of the family Yomi created. The man replies with a question, huh? He says he's part of the family and begins to say, I. Tao-san says he never thought he'd find anyone dumber than himself, and that it's getting annoying, asking what's going on here. He explains that his head starts to hurt when he thinks about his father and older brother, and that's why they took him away. Then Tao-san says, the woman says it hurts, and he and the woman repeat repeatedly that it hurts. He says it hurts. The man screams that it hurts. The woman sits on the floor and looks at the man, who is standing in front of another man who has multiple arrows in his body and is surrounded by smoke. The man. Tao-san says no, trying to stop the action. A man shoots another man who is pierced by several arrows and stands against the wall. Tao-san looks up, then catches the fired bullet in his hand and throws it back. He says he's not going to give up and warns the opponent that if he doesn't stop, he'll break his nose. The opponent says he's not afraid and is ready to continue the fight. Tao-san says he can't afford to die here, explaining that his body won't hold up if he doesn't stop. Tao-san then delivers the fatal blow to the man, piercing him with a long weapon. The man falls to the floor with a broken head, and Tao-san stands. A man stands on another man's head, impaling his body with two long metal rods. Tao-san says, Redhead, it's you. The guy repeats, Redhead. It's written on the wall, don't you dare kill Redhead. Tao-san stabs the guy. He screams as he falls to the floor, surrounded by debris and smoke. He then tries to get up, making sounds of pain. In the next scene, he falls backwards and then slams hard into the wall, causing destruction all around. Tao-san says he's not going to give up, and that the real battle is about to begin. The man says he's not going to give in either, and that it's just beginning. Tao-san explains he has the strength to win, and he's going to prove it. The man says he's ready to accept the challenge and show. He says that if he can't get through, no one else can, and announces that he'll now show you what it means to be a real man. He then stands in the smoke, preparing for further action. Tao-san informs him that if he fails to win, he will die, and explains that these aren't just words, but his determination. Tao-san then leaps forward, and the man concentrates energy in his hand. He reports that the enemy was unable to detonate it when he cut off its arm, and explains that he must destroy its core before it regenerates. Tao-san stands with his back to the enemy and creates multiple explosions in front of him. Tao-san looks forward, his face engulfed in flames. In the upper right-hand plane, a man shouts Ka as he attacks an enemy. He explains that the enemy has exploded his own blood, so he can't just cut him into pieces, he needs to somehow hit his core. The man orders him to lie down. In the lower plane, a man says something in surprise, and he watches. The guy reports that they're in cell 4-3, where an unknown person not mentioned in the report is being held, and that the guns aren't working on him. Two guards ask Alma what's going on. The guy yells for them to leave, and the guard orders them to get lost, saying they won't be able to help here. Tao-san says it's his first day back from dying, and he can't even get a kick out of ordering himself to burn. He says, "What the fuck?" Then Tao-san yells, "Stop," and orders him to die. Three men retreat from an explosion in a corridor. He finds himself on fire, his body engulfed in flames. He screams in pain and tries to protect himself from the fire. He stands in the fire, and a man with long legs appears next to him, approaching him. Tao-san says that if he can't stop the girl, she'll kill everyone. The girl delivers a powerful blow to the man standing to the right, and Tao-san prepares for further action. The image states that the action takes place in the Gokuraku region. Tao-san says that if he dies, he won't be able to eat good food anymore and asks not to kill him. The man says he doesn't intend to kill Tao-san, but wants him to tell who sent him. The guy says that if he can't control himself, he'll burn down along with this place. Then the guy explains that he can't afford to die here. Tao-san says it's impossible. He then strikes the enemy, who is engulfed in flames and blown to pieces. He says it's an explosion that could destroy everything around it and warns people to stay away. Tao-san says he's not going to give up and declares he'll fight to the end. Tao-san then rises from the ground, surrounded by smoke and debris. He says he doesn't understand why it was done. Tao-san says that it would be better if Utsu dies. The woman says that this is the end and says that she can now die in peace. Tao-san reveals that this is chapter 31, titled, "Because You Looked at Me." A man kneels before a burning body, holding a machete. The man explains that he did this for the sake of the one who looked at him. A man with an eye patch claims to be a living cockroach. He says that people like that are the most annoying. The man with the eye patch is aiming a gun and breathing heavily. The man says that he is annoyed by the fact that his plans are always being interfered with. How much longer can they get in his way? And he curses at him. Tao-san tells him to keep quiet. He says he'll work his ass off until the nucleus disintegrates into atoms. The guy screams that he doesn't understand. He says that now we'll see who's going to kick whose ass. Dao-san says that if he can't win, he will die, and announces that this is the end. He states that if he can't win, he will die, and says that he doesn't intend to die. He explains that he doesn't intend to give up, and that he intends to fight to the end. Dao-san says that if he can't win, he'll die, and declares that he has no intention of giving up. The man fires his pistol. Dao-san fends off the enemy's attack. An explosion occurs. A man with an eye patch says it's crazy. A guy screams that it's a fucking condom. Tao-san reports that he has almost no blood left and needs more. He throws several capsules on the floor. He squats down, picking up the capsules. The man with the wound on his face makes sounds of pain. Dao-san says that he cannot let the enemy leave alive, and says that he will kill him now. He says that he is alive, repeating this several times. Tao-san says that he is alive, 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 and that all he had to do was drink a little more of Mr. Yomi's blood. He says he's part of the family now, and it's awesome. He asks to look at Chihaya and declares that he's strong and not just expendable. Tao-san tells him to leave the scary stories for hell. He then delivers a powerful blow to the man, piercing his body. Afterwards, Tao-san stands on the ground, surrounded by energy, and the man screams in intense pain. A man with an eye patch says he can't believe he made it through all of this, as he stands silently in a hallway surrounded by fire and destruction. The guy says it looks like Misao isn't coming and asks if he's really dead, to which he replies that yes, Misao is dead. The man explains that he's betting that this isn't the first time Misao has died, and that if he died like an idiot the first time, then the second time will be the same. A man says it's a test shot. The man fires, and another man with a suitcase is thrown back by the explosion. The dog screams that it's his. Tao-san says that it's his invention. Tao-san aims his pistol. He shoots and screams. A man is wounded and falls. He smokes and looks forward. A man with buns on his head stands, his body covered in burns. The man delivers a powerful punch. The man breaks down the wall and approaches the woman with glasses who is holding a suitcase. The woman with glasses says that if he wants to fight, then let him start. Tao-san strikes the man with a board, who raises his hand to defend himself. The man declares that he is not going to give up. The man says he can't lose. The man explains that if he loses, he will die. The woman asks who could have killed someone so muscular. The man explains that the other man clearly crossed the wrong people. The man says women are beautiful. He explains that women's bones make a beautiful crunching sound. The man says that Yomi-sensei gave him a second chance so he could live life to the fullest. The woman says she usually wants to sympathize with the mage, but from her interlocutor's answer, she realized he can't stay alive and says, Then she takes a pistol from her case and points it forward. A woman fires a pistol, making a gunshot sound and expressing surprise. She then makes a sound similar to a cough. A masked man stands opposite, watching the scene. The man announces that he is here. The woman remains silent. The woman with the gun explains that something devilish is happening. The woman explains that it's not just about the recoil, The man explains that the mage's blood is poisonous to humans. Since he was made from their blood, it's also toxic. The woman says that one touch is enough to cause severe injury, and Tao-san says, that's right. Tao-san then strikes the woman, knocking her back. The top right panel shows a pistol shot. He states that if he can withstand at least one of the enemy's blows, broken bones will be the least of his problems. Below, he explains that to kill the enemy, he needs to use up a pistol bullet, which the guy yells at Dao. The woman tells him to use his left hand. The masked man says the man is bothering him and calling him a mutt, then shoots him. The masked man says he's already forgotten about those 9 years. A woman says she hates using her left hand, and it reminds her of her childhood. A man stands opposite her. The man says he's not going to give up and warns he'll fight to the end. Tao-san says he's also not going to back down and is ready to fight. A man says he can't remember how to shoot in 3 shots. A man notices something and reacts to it. A man asks if it's a coincidence. A man reacts in surprise to the appearance of clothes flying toward him. Tao-san says that if he can't kill the man will kill him, and he can't let that happen. The man says he doesn't intend to kill Tao-san, but wants to talk. He delivers a powerful kick to the man, who falls to the floor. The man apologizes, then makes a sound of pain. The man suddenly leans back, supporting himself on his hands. The man suddenly crashes into the wall. The man lifts the girl up and throws her over his shoulder. The woman says she's forgotten everything, of course, but at that distance she simply can't miss. The woman fires a pistol. The man is on his knees. The woman explains that when they're in human form, it upsets her 20% more and says, "So?" The woman reports that the situation is very bad.